Hello, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran, and I'm here with Andrew Velez, Joe Dehls, and this is now episode 325. In this episode, we are going to debate if the Dolphins are contenders or not, if the Cowboys are on the same level as the Eagles, talk about the Ravens' dominance, recap the Bills and Bengals game, and give out our mid-season awards. NFL after week 9, we're recording on Monday night, right before Monday Night Football. There's one game left.
Sir,
it's the Jets, and it's the Chargers.
The game. A lot of playoff implications, wild card implication. Riv, where you at, bro? No Riv.
This guy, man. Riv in football, where he's been cooking this season. That's why.
He's first in this week in terms of pick'ems. Yeah, he got 9 wins. I got 8. You guys are at 7.
I think that's why I'm most disappointed, because he's been coming to
his
play
boy
recently.
CJ just went crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Twinsky, Kyler Murray's coming back.
Yeah.
Deshaun had a good game.
Purdy didn't play last week, I guess.
So that's what it takes. His bye week goes hand in hand with Purdy's.
Purdy's gonna bye. Riv gets a bye. Shout out Riv.
Even though his Eagles. I mean, listen, I would be here talking my shit if I was Riv.
A win's a win.
But bro's working. He's not just here for no
Facts.
reason. He's out here. He's grinding, of course. Riv, we miss you. We know that you're obviously getting to the bag.
Every Monday, we will be recording a podcast. Next Monday, we are hoping and expecting Riv will be here as well.
Definitely.
But the next football pod will be Wednesday, NFL Pick'em. That's on Patreon exclusive only.
Mm-hmm.
And on this episode, we got some Patreon questions that we will answer shortly. But we're going to get to the meat of the potatoes of the show before we do any of that. But how you guys doing, man?
I'm doing okay. I can't complain too much. Saw some solid football yesterday. Obviously, we know we're going to talk about the Dolphins in this one. Didn't start my day off the greatest. However, after some reflection, I'm feeling a little bit better than what I did. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm doing very well. Can't complain too much.
I'm doing good. Not my best week of fantasy. You know, my like 2, 3, 4, like my top leagues I care about the most, I basically lost in all of them. So not ideal. Other than that, you know, we got Jets football tonight. So if they win, I'll take it.
Fantasy football has been treating me well. It has. It has. Started off 0-3. Now we're here 6-3 in the main league. Life's good there, no doubt.
I'm doing good, man. You know, I just today was a pretty productive day. Just doing notes for the podcast. You know, just rewatching some stuff. I went to the gym. I went to Trader Joe's and shopped. Got this kombucha. It's doesn't taste the best.
It's like drinking liquid shit.
It tastes terrible.
it's not good. And I got one of the worst flavors, so it doesn't help at all.
What flavor did you get, bro?
It's has apple, turmeric, carrot, and spices.
It's funny because when I got the only kombucha I ever had, I got some like lemon, expecting like a lemonade type deal. No.
Yeah.
It's absolute dog shit.
It's like acid in your
It's
mouth.
horrible.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's good for your gut health. So I thought I'd give it a try and see how I feel after I take some sips of it and drink it for some time now, trying to be consistent with it.
Alexandra loves kombucha for what I think it's for women. Honestly, I do think it's for women.
Yeah.
Has to do with like pH and whatever the fuck.
I definitely think it's an acquired taste. I think once you start drinking it for a while, then you might start to like it.
It's like drinking tea, except tea's 30 times better than what that is. Like that's what you're anticipating when you drink kombucha. Oh, I'm about to have like a shitty iced tea. No, but it's way worse than that.
Yeah, it's not that good at all.
Dude, actually, let me get a taste of it.
Okay. On the show, live reaction.
You can tell that this is terrible. He's barely had a sip.
Kombucha.
No, this looks horrible. Oh, I wasn't supposed to shake.
Oh yeah, because it's fermented, which means it bubbles and stuff. So if you shake it, it's like a soda.
Dude, it smells like pickles. Why? Why does it smell like pickles, bro?
I was expecting a different taste.
Bro.
Are you gonna sip it?
Yes.
Bro's teasing it.
It smells 30 times worse than how it tastes.
Yeah, it doesn't taste terrible. It's not that bad.
It's like a shitty cinnamon, like a shitty pumpkin spice.
Yeah, it tastes pretty good.
It smells. Smell it.
Doesn't smell like much to me.
This guy has COVID. No, I get pickles immediately. I'm not drinking this again. But it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's not terrible.
I like the branding of it. The branding looks really nice.
No, the cover definitely
really
looks
cool. That's what intrigued me. I was like, you know what? This probably going to taste really good. I'm going to get this cover.
Lie. I need some water.
NFL Week 9. Let's get into the first topic of the show. Dolphins lost to the Chiefs. Chiefs beat them 21-14. The stat continues with the Dolphins. They're 6-0 against teams that are under 500.
They are.
They are 0-3 against teams 500 or better.
Mm-hmm.
Are they contenders or not? Drew, you got the Dolphins gear on. I feel like you might be feeling good despite the loss.
So, immediately after the loss, immediately after the last 4 plays of that Dolphins game, I was sitting by myself. I was really reflecting on the game. Like, how is this possible? Tua goes and has himself an all right game up until that point in time. We saw Tyreek in that first half kind of mess up a little bit, had dropped that deep ball that we had conversations about. You may think that's a little bit overthrown. To me, it's Tyreek Hill. It hits you in both hands. You got to catch that. You're 1 of 1. You need to do better than that. And then, of course, there's a situation on 3rd and 7 where they get that first down to Jalen Waddle when they're in Kansas City territory. Then it gets called back for an illegal formation, kind of stalls the drive. There was just so many instances in that first half that you can look at and just think Miami left opportunity after opportunity there. And, of course, they end the half with a Tyreek Hill fumble that, of course, we usually don't see that happen to Tyreek. He just gets big broed by McDuffie. They go and they lateral it back to Cook, and Cook runs a 4.4 right into the crib, maybe faster than 4.4. He looked lightning fast there. But really why I say I feel a little bit better than I did at that point in time is because what has been the Achilles heel of this Miami's team? It's been the defense. It's been one of the worst units in football, but this was the first week where we saw Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey on the same field together. The first drive, it looked like Kansas City was about to score 50 points on them, but they only allowed 2 touchdowns in the entirety of the game. Both of those touchdowns did come into the first half. Kansas City scored 21 points. That was only in the first half, and again, one of those scores was off the fumble recovery from Tyreek Hill. The defense played excellent. I think it really did a great job of putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes, double teaming Travis Kelce, really forcing him to forcing anyone other than Travis Kelce to beat them. And I saw even you mention it. I don't know if you made a TikTok or you tweeted about it, or maybe we were just texting about it. You said, listen, that's what Kansas City's going to have to struggle with. If teams are going to try and take away Kelce, that's where the other options on the team really need to step up, and we don't know that can be the case. Did see Rashid get into the end zone, but outside of that, really didn't do much else. He did have that out route that he caught for the first down, but really no other Chiefs receiver really stepped up big time. This defense from Miami, after watching the game, and of course, my big takeaway would be I need to see Tua step up in that last drive of the game. Most importantly, those last 4 plays, because the one that he goes and kind of just feels the pressure. They blitz him on those last 4 plays. He felt the pressure, kind of had that one throwaway to Mostert, had the route where Waddle slipped. Definitely would have liked to have that one back. I think that if Waddle doesn't slip, that's a first down. It's a solid ball, but it slipped. It happened. That's football. The one that I want back terribly because I still don't know what happened. How is it that Cedric Wilson is so wide open, has a touchdown, we're about to tie the game, what happens that Tua just floats it and terribly underthrows it? Is it a miscommunication? That's kind of how I'm leaning right now. But even with that feeling, why are you floating it? You know, it wasn't like one of those where it's a laser to the sideline. It's an obvious comeback route that you and Cedric clearly weren't on the same page. It was a floater. Did it slip out of his hand? Was it just Tua did not? Did Tua and Cedric have an obvious miscommunication? That to me, I still don't know. And then, of course, we end the game on the botch snap. That stinks. But why I feel so good about this is because the defense played well against one of the best offenses in the game. Now, I know that Kansas City has been struggling, and I've been very vocal about that. But against the Chargers, they looked 100% fine. Like, they were back to their normal selves. But Fangio drew up an amazing scheme outside of course, that first drive of the game, and they executed at a very high level. And that's what was going to happen when you had Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard on the same field at the same time. You saw Chubb, you saw Phillips, you saw Wilkins really getting pressure on Mahomes, making him uncomfortable. So I still believe in this Kansas City offense, which is why I'm not worried anymore. What I needed to see was the defense. And I understand that the offense was put in a position to tie this game. But again, there were so many opportunities lost in that first half that I still feel confident that Miami can still be contenders. Because the big question was the defense, and they kind of answered some of that yesterday.
We're saying contenders as in Super Bowl contenders. Is this correct?
To come out of the AFC.
To come out of the AFC, yeah. I don't see Miami as that team, unfortunately. You know, as Joel mentioned, 6-0 against under 500
that's the
teams.
question. The question is contenders or not?
I just wanted to make sure we're not saying, like, you know, they win a playoff game, AFC Championship, Super Bowl contenders. I don't know if I see
moves to get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey. You're playing for a Super Bowl.
I just want to make sure I got the definition of contender correct because, you know, defensively, I think that's the biggest takeaway you have, right? on a Chiefs team that has been struggling, right? We've seen over the years, they've had these moments, these few weeks up to a month where either Mahomes struggles with some turnovers, the offense and totality struggles, but you have to give credit to Fangio, who had a great scheme. Travis Kelce, we talked on the fantasy reaction, he hadn't had that bad of a game since week 8 of 2021,
Insane.
right? So that's more than just, Chiefs not being able to perform at their level. That's more than just Mahomes and him not being on the same page. You have to give credit to Fangio on that defense for the scheme they were able to bring up. But then if you look on the offensive side of things, we see 3 weeks now of this Dolphins team where when they're going up against good teams, and some of these, like the Eagles were included in here, who don't really have great defenses, the Dolphins are putting up 17 points per game. They're averaging 17 first downs, 300 yards, 225 passing yards, negative 49 point differential. When you go up against those teams where they're 6-0, they're averaging nearly 40 points, have 25 first downs per game, 500 total yards of offense, and over 300 passing yards per game. So I think it is more than just the defense that you have to be, you're saying like you're taking away, but it's also the offense, right? This isn't the first time we've seen kind of the offense, I don't want to say stagnate, because we saw in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, they kind of got things going.
For sure.
But the number one offense in the NFL, the Tua leading the league in passing yards, all of these numbers, it's great, but I don't know if I fully trust it, because I'm looking at the AFC right now. We talk all the time about the AFC and the quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, but it's the defenses. The Baltimore Ravens have the first or second best defense in the league. Kansas City Chiefs are top 5. Cleveland Browns, if Deshaun has any sort of average quarterback player going to be in the mix, they're a top 5 defense. If the Jets could string some wins together, they're the 7th seed. They're going to have a great defense. So it's more than just, going up against top quarterbacks. Dolphins are going to have to go up against top defenses too. And on top of that, if they, they can still win the division. Obviously, Buffalo, they're in first place still, even with that loss, because Buffalo lost to the Bengals last night. There are some teams that are rolling right now, right? I look at the Ravens, who had another just dominating victory. I'm looking at the Jags, who are 6-2. The Bengals are coming alive. And the Dolphins, I feel the same way about Detroit on the other side. I feel like they're a team that needs to be home. I feel like they're a team that needs to be in Miami for multiple games if they want to get to the Super Bowl. Because if they end up being the 4th seed, right? Round 1, sure, you go up against an AFC or a wild card team who still might have a great team. You might still be going up against a Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson in that wild card round. Round 2, you might have to go on the road to, a Cincinnati or Baltimore, whoever ends up winning, or on the road to a Kansas City, or on the road even to a Jacksonville, which I'm not as worried about. But I do think it's very important for Miami to get home field advantage. So that's why these regular season games, while, there's still half the season to go, you still have opportunity down the road to prove yourself as, we're 0-3 now against good teams, but we got the Jets twice that we could say, this offense could go up and beat a great defense. I think you have Dallas on the schedule still.
Yep.
So there is still some more opportunities, but I do think these next 8 weeks to get home field advantage, the 1 seed is still not completely out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to get the 1 seed, everyone has to go through Miami, and I feel more comfortable about it being kind of neutral weather, and the offense can do what the offense wants to do, which, number one, I still think has to be more run game involved.
Agreed.
Because when Miami is gashing you with Raheem Mostert and Achane, who's expected to come back after their bye, this offense goes to a different level, right? When you have to worry about the run game, and then you're like, oh shit, they have Tyreek Hill doing all of this motion and Jalen Waddle going all over the field. The offense, that's when we see the Miami at their best. But they have had a couple of games. This one, look at Philly, great rush defense, where the rushing game kind of, whether it's not effective or McDaniel gets away with it too soon, kind of partially of both. That's when we kind of see teams more collapse on this passing game, and we don't see it as explosive.
It's simple. Until they get a quality win, they cannot be a contender. They're 0-3 against these quality team opponents. I know you like to harp on the Chargers win. I'm not that high on the Chargers. In the month of October, they were one of the worst defenses and one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I'm not that high on them. Versus the Bills, they were outmatched. Versus the Eagles, you had some drops, you had some penalties, you had the 2 interception, whatever. That was a closer game than the score indicated. Versus the Chiefs, down 21-0 going into halftime, they made a comeback. They made it a game. That final drive, Raheem Mostert had 44 yards rushing.
He was amazing.
Then we look at the final sequence of that drive. Tua misses Cedric Wilson. Whether that's a miss or miscommunication, it doesn't matter. Whether it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got to make that play.
I agree.
There was no pressure in his face. Nope. He could have rethought what was happening. And that's what I talk about when I mention Tua and his post-processing, where he looks at something pre-snap and that's where he wants to go to. He's anticipating what's going to be open, but other quarterbacks their anticipation is often more correct than that. Where Tua, I feel like, trusts the system a little bit too much and doesn't go on the fly. So when you need Tua to go on the fly and make a play, you're not going to get the result that you want most of the time. And then on that fourth down, botch snap, whatever, Tua had his hands on it, and then he just kind of falls on the ball, and then that's the game right there. Let's play a little game, right? Between us and between the audience out there that's watching.
Love a good game.
Raise your hand if you believe in the stats that Tua is putting up.
Of course. That's fine with me.
Show of hands.
Alone on this.
One of three people at this table raised their hand.
It's just because Tua is putting up the best numbers in the NFL.
And
That's why I think he's a really good quarterback, but not the best.
And I am pretty sure anybody that's watching or listening probably didn't raise their hand. I don't think anybody really believes in these stats. Sure, he's playing amazing, but Dehls made this point again with the offense against 500 teams or better. Is this something or is this nothing? Tua's stats versus teams that are 500 or better this season. He's completing 68% of his passes. That's good.
That's great.
230 yards per game.
That's average.
3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions and an 89 passer rating. Against teams that are not 500 or better, so under 500, 71.4% completion percentage, 319 yards per game, 16 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, 114 passer rating.
He's also played against more bad teams than he's played against good teams. Again, I'm not going to be here and be ignorant and say that he hasn't played the same way against these great teams. Of course, that's evident. But watching the game versus the Eagles, like you mentioned to open up your monologue, he played a good game, and it was a lot closer than what the score actually revealed. You mentioned the drops. You mentioned Tyreek Hill dropping that touchdown. Of course, they did get the pick six right back after. Then the miscommunication between a Mostert and a Waddle. Now, this past weekend, yesterday versus the Kansas City Chiefs, you had Tyreek Hill drop a ball. You had Jalen Waddle track a ball incorrectly. Of course, you had the Tyreek Hill fumble. And then down the stretch, right, you have to blame Tua there. That's where I will give blame when it's due. You have to hit Cedric Wilson there. There's no excuse there. But it also goes hand in hand with, I think that these performances have been better than what the numbers show you. But again, with people that look at numbers, and listen, I'm not going to say that numbers don't matter to me. They definitely do. But I think that in these games, he's played a lot better than what the numbers say.
Do you think it's something or nothing?
It's definitely something. The reason why I say I don't believe it, though, is because he's putting out, he's like number one in passing yards by like 300 yards. The touchdowns, all of the advanced numbers, too, basically show that he's been the best quarterback in the NFL this season. And I don't believe that. He's been, without a doubt, playing at a top 10, probably top 5 level for a majority of these games. But at this point to his career, it's like, okay, you've showed me you could put up godly numbers. You could put up 400 or 500 passing yards. You could put up 5 touchdown games. But let's go and beat a good defense. Let's get to the playoffs. That's the next step into his career. So I'm kind of over him. Like, it's great, right? You should feel fantastic that you have a quarterback that can do it. But now for him to take that next step into, if he wants to be in that conversation with the Jalen Hurtses and the Trevor Lawrence, kind of that next step of quarterback play, he needs to do it against great defenses.
I don't think the Dolphins are far off. I think they are on the cusp of getting somewhere. The defense with Vic Fangio now having Jalen Ramsey at his disposal, I think he can finally run the scheme that he wants. And it showed. They doubled the hell out of Kelsey. Kelsey could not do anything. Nope. And receivers could not get open down the field. And that's the major problem with the Chiefs offense right now. They don't need a world beater. They don't need Devontae Adams. They don't need Tyreek Hill. They just need
someone
like a Juju Smith-Schuster. Mm-hmm. They miss Juju right now. And it's crazy because right now in New England, he's not doing much. But they miss a receiver like that. They just need somebody to win sometimes. Not all the time, just sometimes. And Rashee Rice has been their best receiver, but he's not somebody that can separate. He's not a great route runner.
He's still a rookie. He's still young. Got growing pains.
Yeah, he's somebody that after the catch, he'll do some damage, but he's not winning with his route running. MVS had a crucial drop on 39 in the second half in the fourth quarter. Could have been a touchdown. He had his hands on it. He just dropped it.
Be honest, fringe pass interference too.
These receivers just have to step up for Mahomes and company. But Mahomes post-game, he said it, and I believe him when he says it. We have the best defense in the league. While I don't agree where it's the best, I think it's a top 5 unit. He did mention, we're going to get this offense figured out. And it's hard for me not to believe in what he's saying. If he says it's going to be figured out, it's going to be figured out.
When he's played good defenses, it hasn't been figured out. No. And the Broncos aren't a good defense. It's a division game. Of course, we can put an asterisk around that one too. But we've seen against the Jets, against Miami, where Miami has not been a good defense. We can look at this week versus the Chiefs where, hey, this is the week we pinpointed exactly where the Dolphins figured it out. They were 100% healthy. Fangio, can finally run the scheme that he wants now that Jalen Ramsey's back and, of course, Xavier Howard on the other side. This is the week where we talk about the Miami Dolphins being one of the better defenses in the game. But until we see them on a consistent basis perform like they did against the Chargers, I can't really feel overly confident with this offense. It is Mahomes. You give him that benefit of the doubt. They do have Andy Reid, Travis Kelce for sure. But if teams are going to play against the Chiefs the way that the Dolphins did yesterday, then it's going to be issues for Kansas City.
Kansas City 7-2, and I think that Andy Reid is saving his best stuff for the playoffs.
He should.
I don't think all of the tricks in a hat are being let loose right now. I think he got a lot of stuff where in the Super Bowl, Vic Fangio was helping the Eagles out with that game plan, and historically Mahomes hasn't fared the best against Vic Fangio defenses. But in the Super Bowl, they scored at will. Every drive they scored. I think they're just saving their best stuff for when it matters the most, because right now they're cruising to victories led by their defense. But with the Dolphins, Tua deserves some slack, but Tyreek Hill got to show up because Tyreek Hill,
he's got to be better.
Versus the Eagles, he had a major drop, could have been a touchdown. In this game, he had a drop in the first half, and before the first half, Trent McDuffie rips it from him and then laterals it to Brian Cook, and Brian Cook takes it to house.
Great play.
So Tyreek Hill has to be better, and he has to show up in these moments as well. And while he's a phenomenal receiver, nobody's taking that away from him. Before he got traded to the Dolphins in 2021 when he was still on the Chiefs, Mahomes was throwing interceptions, and half of them were bobbles from Tyreek Hill of him dropping passes and them landing on defenders. That's the one knock on Tyreek Hill, that he has kind of like a trend of like dropping the ball sometimes. That has to be cleaned up, because in these games, it's one or two plays that matter and can dictate how the game goes, and he's not making the plays he should be making.
It's like I can come up here and I could, be screaming and yelling, but really there's no reason to. Right now, the truth is the truth. The Dolphins have not beat a team that has a 500 record. But again, I can still feel optimistic because my main concern had always been the defense. To come out and put the performance that they just did, it definitely starts to put my mind at ease, because you're going up against Kansas City. Now, you mentioned they're going to be tested a little bit down the stretch. You're right. They're going to go up against Dallas. They have Baltimore. They have Buffalo again. They have the Jets twice, and I say that for defensive purposes. Go up against an elite defense. Show me what you can do. So I still firmly believe that this offense is going to be okay. You also mentioned a Chain has not been playing recently. Once he gets back, I just want to see them more on a consistent basis. Just lean into the run and trust that Mostert, and whenever a Chain comes back, a Chain can do the job. Mostert on that last drive, I'm not even using it as a knock against Tua. Excellent play calls. You think that they're going to pass in that type of situation? No, you hand it off to Mostert. You let him do his job. He executed that amazingly. Great call by McDaniel. I think that we should have saw that a little bit more early in the game, but you got to pick and choose on first down. What's the most predictable thing? We're going to run the ball. And then on that second to last drive, they go and they hand it to Salvin Ahmed, and they lose 7 yards. And then, of course, now you're forced into a passing situation. And then you get pressure and you blitz and you get a sack. I believe it was the only sack that they ended up getting on Tua, unless we're going to count that fumble at the very end of the game. You got to pick and choose. You got to be smart with it. We know that Mike McDaniel can be. And, of course, we just need to see, like you said, for me with improvisation with Tua needs to be confidence that when I'm at the line, I can do what I want. I can dictate where people are going. I have that control. This is my offense. That's what I want to see from Tua. When he's reading a defense, I get to change the play and do what I want to do. On that first down, I want to see Tua audible out of that. know that if you run a play action pass there, they're expecting to run. Maybe we can move the ball down the field a little bit better. But other than that, I still trust that this team can be great at a high level.
Taking a quick break in the action of this show because we got to talk about this brand new DFS app. Is Mojo Fantasy. It's a crazy new app that turns sportsbook odds and selections into fantasy contests. Here's how it works. There are thousands of NFL and MLB player props. You build a portfolio, and the better your portfolio performs, the more cash you win. Pick as many props as you want and try to beat the crowd. It's a whole new way to play fantasy. The props act like stocks, so you can buy and sell live all game long. It's the only fantasy app that lets you make moves after the game starts, so you're not stuck with a bad pick. You can cash in on a hot start or just hang on and let them ride. That's it. Make picks, make moves, make money. It's Mojo Fantasy. Check it out on the Apple App Store. They're coming to more states and adding more sports soon. Responsibility is earned in this league when you get to make calls like that at the line. This offseason, Mike McCarthy gave that responsibility to Dak Prescott.
He has.
And Dak Prescott looked like he was doing that versus the Eagles. He had a great game. Dak
he has been great over the last 3 games
he has been. 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. But I was looking at this chart not too long ago of quarterbacks that EPAs drop off the most versus above average defenses. Dead last is Tua. His EPA drops off the most. Second to last is Dak Prescott. In this game, he played a damn good game. The Cowboys could have beat the Eagles. They lost 28-23, only a 5-point game. After the bye week, this offense has been much more potent, and that's where I want to give Dak and I want to give Mike McCarthy more credit. CeeDee Lamb has been more involved. He had 191 yards and 11 receptions in this game. And Jake Ferguson has really come on nicely.
For sure.
He is now like the second option. You're not going to Gallup or Cooks. You're going to Jake Ferguson, and he's making the most of that opportunity. If I were to just read you off these stats, you're telling me the Cowboys outplay the Eagles. Cowboys 406 total yards to the Eagles 292. I got some more here. Time of possession. Cowboys had a better time of possession. They were up 17-14 at halftime. This is where I can't trust Dallas. And versus San Fran, I don't think the Cowboys have a chance. I don't. I think they have a chance against the Eagles. Versus San Fran, it's a puncher's chance. You barely give them a chance. Versus the Eagles, I think they can win some rounds. It's something like that where they can win some rounds. They could do some damage, and it's going to come down to the final possession. But the Cowboys being up 17-14 at halftime. Out of halftime, the Eagles scored on their first 2 drives of the half. Mm-hmm. Just like that, they're up 28-17, and they go into this chew clock mode. The Cowboys are not moving down the field in the third quarter at all. The fourth quarter is where their offense started to get going when the Eagles were playing soft coverage on them. But I'm looking at these drives in the fourth quarter. I jotted them down. First drive, just the key plays of it. 4th and goal, pass to Schoonmaker. It's this close to being a touchdown, but his knee's down. The ball's not in the end zone, so it doesn't count. Just shy of a touchdown. That was a back-breaking play. Second drive of the fourth quarter. Touchdown to Tolbert. 2-point conversion would have made it 25-28. I thought Dak Prescott got into the end zone.
So did I.
His foot was out of bounds.
Bad beat.
The third drive of the fourth quarter. Dak Prescott drops back and gets sacked. It puts the Cowboys in a 3rd and 21. They get a chunk play to CD. It's a 4th and 8 throw to Tolbert, and on Bradbury, he's not getting that. And then before the final drive the Cowboys had in the fourth quarter, the Eagles are not trying to get first downs. The Eagles are being super vanilla and handing the ball back consistently to the Cowboys. They're not being aggressive and chewing clock against them. They were giving them multiple opportunities. They do 3 straight runs. DeAndre Swift fumbles. The Eagles recover it. It's a punt to Dallas. Then what do we get? A Bradbury DPI. A Hassan Reddick roughing the passer. Now, before you know it, the Cowboys are at the 6-yard line. It's 1st and 5. And what happens? Oh, it's a false start. It's now 1st and 10. And you're at the 11-yard line. And then what happens next? Dak Prescott takes a sack. It's 2nd and 21. They run a play. They get nothing. It's 3rd and 21. Delay of game on Dak Prescott. It's 3rd and 26 now. They get nothing. Now it's 4th and 26. Heaver, a prayer to CeeDee Lamb. He's just short. They had so many opportunities. I'm looking at all these different opportunities, and I'm saying to myself, if roles were reversed, if this was the Eagles offense and the Cowboys defense, the Eagles score easily. I have confidence they'll score. If this was the 49ers, they score easily. I have confidence that they're going to score. This isn't a moral victory for the Cowboys. The reason they don't win big games is because they don't come through in these situations. They were 3 for 5 in the red zone. The Eagles were 3 for 3. You can find me all the stats that show the Cowboys outplayed the Eagles. No, they did not. Because when the Eagles needed drives, they got them and they scored. Jalen Hurts has won his past 6 games where he's been trailing by double digits. He's like past 6 games.
Don't play with him, man.
When you need a play, you trust the Eagles to get a defensive stop, to make an offensive explosive play. With the Cowboys, you don't. The Eagles scored on 4 of the first 6 drives. Then they started chewing clock. They weren't even really worried about the Cowboys at that point anymore. The stats look nice. You could say, oh, the Cowboys look like the better team. I think these matches will come down to one possession, but in that possession, do you trust the Cowboys to overcome and beat that team? The answer is no. They're not great situationally. And the topic of this was are they on the Eagles level? And the answer is no. Until they can come through in those situations where you got to have it, they are not on the same level. If the Cowboys had won this game and won next week, they are first place in the NFC East. Now you're 2.5 games back, and the road to win this division, to win the conference, is much, much tougher. They shot themselves in the foot, and they had opportunities to overcome all of it, and they didn't.
So just real quick, because at the beginning of your monologue, you said that against the Niners, they have no chance, right? Puncher's chance. But you still think they have a chance. They're going to play Philly again this regular season, maybe match up in the playoffs. You still think they have a chance?
They got a chance because they match up well against each other. Mm-hmm. The Eagles secondary is banged up. Yeah. And the Eagles secondary, even if they're not banged up, I trust Slay, but Bradbury, he's not very good right now. He doesn't hold up great in coverage right now. And they move CD around now, so now he's in the slot, and you have other corners guarding him that are not Slay or Bradbury. The Cowboys can put up points on the Eagles. I know that for certain. I don't think the Cowboys can put up points on the Niners. As long as you can put up points on the Eagles, that game is going to come down to a final possession.
Kind of interesting that the Cowboys couldn't put up points against the Niners, and of last few weeks we've seen the Niners defense be kind of forgiving. Yeah. Go ahead, you could talk.
Oh, sorry. This felt like a game Dallas should have won, right? Joel, you mentioned all the stats in terms of total yards, time of possession, penalties were right there. That last drive, Dallas got the ball around the 20 or so. They need 80 yards. They got 60 yards of penalties to get them on the goal line. They were within the 10-yard line before all the penalties and sacks and whatnot. So it felt like if there was ever a time for Dallas to kind of have that statement win, get a little bit of kind of the monkey off their back, saying, we are a Super Bowl caliber team. We're a team that could go up with the Eagles and the 49ers and really stand a chance, because these last few years with Dak, and really, for my lifetime as a NFL watcher talking about the Cowboys, they're always good enough. Like, they're never abysmal. They're never the joke of the league. They're never drafted in the top 5. But when playoff time comes, when they have to go on the road and win a big game or even a big regular season game, it always feels like they come up a little bit short. And this was kind of just the epitome of that, where the Eagles, like you mentioned, Joel, first of all, it's kind of a cheat code because they don't need 10 yards. They need like 8. And if they get to 3rd and 2, they could tush push a couple of times and get that first down. But they're just such an offensive juggernaut that they could beat you with the pass. They could beat you with the run. This was a game where Jalen Hurts had, 23 pass attempts? He got banged up during this game, too. You had Dallas Goedert break his arm or his forearm or something, really nasty injury. He's going to be out for 4 weeks. So a lot of things that, listen, the Cowboys didn't get all of their calls, but, a lot of things went the Cowboys' way that if you said before the game, you're going to outgain the Eagles, their quarterback's going to get hurt, Dallas Goedert's going to get banged up, A.J. Brown has his first game where he doesn't go nuclear, right? He's held to under 70 yards. If I tell you all these things, you're expecting the Cowboys to win, right? And they had that opportunity right at the end, and you could point to those, those little things where Dak steps out, at the 2-yard line where if he gets that, it's now just a field goal at the end and they could tie and go into overtime, or the pass to Schoonmaker that, is an inch by the goal line, right? And it's just these little things that maybe before you dig deep, it's like, oh, if this just goes our way, we could win. But the Eagles are so great situationally. they're so great on 3rd and 4th down and short yardage situation that it's hard for me to trust that team on the other side with Dallas that over the years has not shown to be great situationally, has not been great when it comes to gotta have it moments. I'm just thinking about the playoff game a couple years ago when Dak has the QB draw, right, on 3rd down, and the game ends just like that. Of course, that's Kellen Moore, it's Mike McCarthy now. There's different players and whatnot, but it just always feels like Dallas comes up a little bit short. And when you're talking about Philly, when you're talking about San Francisco, the way Detroit's looked this year, all 3 of those teams I'm trusting in bigger moments than Dallas.
If you're going to go off history, Joel, you're so spot on, it's not even funny. But talking about yesterday, talking about last night, situationally, the Eagles were a little bit sloppy in my opinion. You had it where they come out the half, have 2 touchdown drives, very easy. But then they follow it up with not 1, not 2, but 3 punts. And on that last drive, you mentioned the fumble with
Swift.
DeAndre Swift. But really what it was A.J. Brown going in and running motion and popping Swift. A.J.'s a big-ass dude. He goes and he forces Swift to cough up the ball. Luckily, they're able to jump on it. And then on 3rd down, instead of trying to, just give the ball to Jalen Hurts, make him do something, they go and they throw it deep to A.J. Brown on a go ball. To me, that was situationally not the most sound play. What are you showing him here?
Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball 50 yards.
I love to see that. I love to see that. So when it comes to situationally, yesterday, I felt like Philadelphia wasn't the cleanest or as clean as we've seen them in the past. They were giving Dallas opportunity after opportunity, like you alluded to. The Shoemaker not touchdown, that definitely stings because I thought that was a strong play by Dak Prescott, standing strong in the pocket, making that quick read to Shoemaker. He's down at the 1 yard line. That's an excellent play by Blankenship. It is what it is. You live with that one because I thought that it was a solid play. Now, not the second to last drive, but the last drive where Dak Prescott goes, they get the pass interference, they go and they get that roughing the passer after a completion as well. They put themselves in that position. I think CeeDee Lamb needs to do a better job of, I know you're trying to make an in route, you're trying to get yourself open, get on the goal line, cut that break on the line to score, give yourself a chance to at least be in a position to win the game. But it was an unfortunate loss for Dallas. I thought they did a great job of coming back where they were down 17-28. They did have the turnover on downs while the score was still 17-28. Dallas's defense showed up down the stretch of this game. And again, I feel as if the question is rather tricky. Are they on the Eagles' level? In my opinion, no. I still think Philadelphia is the better team. But Joel, you said it perfectly. They can play, and Dallas can come away with the victory because I still don't love this Eagles secondary. We saw it yesterday. Dak Prescott was able to have essentially whatever he wanted against this defense. They're going to get situational sacks. We can talk about situational there. They got some timely plays, some timely sacks. We saw that on the last drive as well. But when it comes to how these two match up, and with the way that Dak Prescott has been playing over these last 3 weeks, I'm giving them a chance to play well and have a chance to beat the Philadelphia Eagles because it's in division and because the Eagles' weakness is one of Dallas' strengths.
Yeah, and Philly fumbled the ball 3 times yesterday, and Dallas didn't come up with any of them. The one with Jalen Hurts in the pocket was a very weird one where it kind of like bounced up and got right back to him. You get a little lucky. It's those. They always say like the ball just doesn't bounce your way. It did feel that a little bit for Dallas. If you make a team fumble 3 times, you think you come up with at least one of them. But I do want to remember this game, and because I did the same thing with Miami when I picked Miami this past week. I told myself a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I know Miami's going to have a couple easy opponents. I'm going to buy back in, and I'm going to pick them against the Chiefs. And I did that. These next 3 games for the Cowboys. It was almost a good pick
for you.
It was. These next 3 games for the Cowboys, though, are going to be Giants, Panthers, and Commanders. So these next 3 weeks, Dallas is probably going to put up some insane offensive numbers.
I agree.
Dallas is probably going to go 3-0. You look at the Eagles' schedule these next 3 weeks. I mean, it's San Francisco, Kansas City, Buffalo. Like these next 3-4 weeks for Philly is basically the hardest 3 to 4 week stretch you're going to have in the NFL. So you're going to have one team in Dallas look amazing for probably a month straight, and a team like Philly who, if they go 2-2, you're like, damn, we'll take that, right? Going up against some of the best teams in football. But then, we're going to come back. They're going to play again, sometime in November or December. We're going to be like, well, Philly hasn't played great this last month, and Dallas looked on top of the world. But just to remember kind of what this matchup looked like, yesterday.
Last thing I'll say before you go, Joel. Dak Prescott was doing like I said this already when I spoke about it, but I really want to reemphasize this point. He looked as if he could do whatever he wanted.
So comfortable.
He was strong in the pocket. He was letting throws deep down the field go with confidence. He was getting out of the pocket, evading pressures, making throws on the run. He looked as good yesterday as he's looked all season long. And this is against a solid Philadelphia defense. I get it. Their secondary hasn't been great, but that front four is a dangerous one. They get after the quarterback. They make you feel uncomfortable, but I never felt as if Dak was uncomfortable. Even on that last drive where he took that sack, he didn't think about clocking it. He said, let's get to the line. Let's run a play. Bold decision.
Bold.
Very bold.
I kind of like it, though.
But I loved it.
Catch him off guard.
I loved it. It showed that you trust yourself. You trust this offense to make a play. Throwing it to Tolbert, maybe not the brightest idea. I would have rather you give CeeDee Lamb an opportunity, who killed yesterday. But I love what I've loved what I've seen out of Dak Prescott these last 3 weeks. He really has done a great job of making people remember who he is, because we know when he's at his best, he is still one of the better quarterbacks in the game. And going up against a division rival, arguably the best team in the National Football League, he put that on full display, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Dak Prescott was amazing, and this year, he's at his best when he's throwing on a run. He's completing 73% of his passes when he throws on the run this year.
That's actually stupid.
That's the best in the NFL. He has the best mark in the NFL when he's throwing on the run. You mentioned the Eagles' defensive line. I thought the Cowboys' offensive line held up well.
They did do a good
outside of
job.
one guy.
Yep.
It's Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele is still recovering from his ACL injury that he suffered last year. He was awesome last year. He was a dominant in the rough. But this year, it's been a struggle for him. You look at the Cowboys and total pressures allowed by offensive linemen this season. Tyler Smith has only allowed 4. He was matched up against Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter had a quiet game. Tyler Smith took him out of it. Tyron Smith, only 5. Tyler Biadasz had 14. Zach Martin had 13. Terrence Steele has allowed 28 total pressures. He allowed 12 in the game against the Eagles alone. 12. You're talking that side, the right side of the offensive line, it's a weak point, a major weak point for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's something that's very hard to overcome for them. I'm looking at Dak Prescott's last 3 games. 71% completion percentage, 950 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, 120.7 passer rating.
Great.
He's been playing
OD
at some of the best quarterback levels in the NFL right now. It's against the Chargers, Rams, and Eagles, not great defenses, but still, he's playing amazing. But the problem with Dak is not that he's not a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. It's just that he got to win these games. He was phenomenal against the Eagles, but when it mattered most, he came a little bit short.
Can't have the sacks, the penalties.
Yeah.
You're just shooting yourself in the foot.
The sacks is the worst thing. You know, he had 2 back-breaking sacks that I just
Delay
feel like
game, you need to have some more, just
you got to throw the
awareness
ball
there.
away there. But, the Cowboys played amazing, but they're kind of like the Dolphins in the regard of until you beat the team that you're going to have to run into in the playoffs, there is only so much I can buy into. But like you mentioned, they got a chance against the Eagles. Whenever they match up again, whether it's the regular season or it's the playoffs, it's going to be a toss-up matchup. I don't think that they're going to get blown out the water. You mentioned the Eagles' tough schedule moving forward. That's why this game was so important for Dallas, though. Because if Dallas wins this game with their easy schedule, they're going to win the division. I have a pretty strong feeling they're going to win it. But putting themselves behind an 8-ball like this, it's just going to be much tougher at this point. And now the matchup that they're going to have against Philadelphia in Dallas is much more must-win right now.
So I understand name value. We're talking about the Chiefs, the Bills, the Niners these next 3 weeks for the Philadelphia Eagles. If there was ever a time to face any of these teams, it's right now. We know that Kansas City is going to go up against a great team. They're going to give them their best that they have. Mahomes usually shows up in these situations.
Kansas City does have a bye.
That's also true. And this is at Kansas.
huge.
This is at Kansas City.
Yeah.
To me, this is the toughest game for Philadelphia. There's no better time to go up against the Buffalo Bills, whose defense looks very vulnerable right now. The offense does not look like it's 100% sound in what it wants to do. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. We've seen them get Kincaid involved a little bit more. But again, they don't have a trustworthy, reliable run game like we've seen the Buffalo Bills have so far in Josh Allen's entire tenure as the Buffalo quarterback. And then with the Niners, I think Jalen Hurts is going to absolutely torch that defense. I think that front four will get some pressure on it. Obviously, having Chase Young added to that bunch alongside Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, This is an amazing Javon Hargrave. This unit's elite. It will get pressure, but the secondary is vulnerable. And with how great of a passer we've seen Jalen Hurts be this season, I think they go 2 of 3 these next 3 games.
Last week we did a playoff prediction, and we had the Eagles coming out the NFC, and we had the Ravens coming out the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens just beat the Seahawks 37-3. And this is the second NFC opponent that is a playoff lock that they have dismantled in this sort of way. The Ravens are 7-2 on the season. They beat the Seahawks 37-3, and they beat the Lions 38-6. Do you think that they are the best team in the AFC? Dehls, I'll start with you.
It's hard not to think that right now. Their defense is playing at such an elite level. I know we talked about the Browns a ton kind of to start off the year. I think the Ravens have probably taken over best defense in the NFL right now. What they're doing to formidable opponents, right? We're not talking they're going up against Zach Wilson every week, right? The Lions going into that game was, can the Lions come out the NFC? And they smoked them by 30.
Killed them.
And then you have the Seahawks game where Seattle, I don't think is Super Bowl caliber or anything like that, but they were in first place in the NFC West going into this game, right? This was a team that, just put up 24 points against the Cleveland Browns, and Baltimore killed them. They scored 3 points. This Baltimore defense right now is playing at such a high level. And the thing is, it's almost Bengals-esque where they don't really have these like big name players, right? Like Kyle Hamilton, you have Humphrey, right? But like Jadeveon Clowney's having a good year too. But they don't have like this superstar player on their defense outside of Roquan probably that makes you think they should be the best defense in football. But collectively, what McDonald is doing too as defensive coordinator there, their defense just plays so together, so fast to the ball. It seems like they could cover everything. That's really what sticks out because offensively, they could just beat you in so many ways, right? We have Lamar, right? So far, they've rushed for 100 yards in every game. 6 of 9 games, they've had over 300 total yards. One game, they had 296. They're the third best team in the red zone, the 6th best team on third down. Defensively, they're number 1 in scoring defense by a full 2 points, number 2 in EPA per play, number 2 in success rate. They've allowed more than 100 yards only 3 times this season. They've allowed only 3 quarterbacks go over 300 yards, and one of those quarterbacks was Jared Goff when they won that game 38-6, and Goff got some garbage time yards. They feel right now like the most complete team in the NFL, and Lamar has these games where the Ravens have these games where they win by 30, and you look at Lamar's stat line, you're like, how the hell did they win by 30? It's like Lamar had like a touchdown and like 230, 240 total yards. Like, how are they doing this? And then you look at their running backs with Gus Edwards and Keontae Mitchell had a big breakout game. And it just feels like whoever gets put into this offense, they just succeed. And that's a lot to do with Lamar Jackson. That's a lot to do with Todd Monken as well, who, the offensive system, they've been able to implement it year one, and it's been great so far. But it's really this defense that's carried them this way. The offense has been sensational. Don't get me wrong. Lamar is right up there, top 2, top 3 in terms of MVP conversation. But the defense is playing at such a high level that no matter who they're going up against, it's the other offense that's going to be at the deficit there because they're going to be going up against the best defense in football. And Lamar and company are going to be able to score points. They're going to be able to control time possession. They're not going to turn the ball over. So right now they feel like not just the best team in the NFC, the AFC, but the best team in football.
This might be a hot take, but versus the Seahawks, I thought Seattle played pretty well defensively. I didn't think that the Ravens were just moving the ball up and down on them with ease. I think the Seahawks had their way on some plays. The problem becomes the Seahawks offense was just unable to sustain any drive, and they had some back-breaking turnovers. You had Geno Stone have an interception on Geno Smith where he just read his eyes the entire way, and he's been a breakout for them.
Great,
Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone, that's arguably the best safety duo in football right now. And then you had Kyle Van Noy, who has kind of had a revival to his career with Baltimore. He had a strip sack on Geno Smith, and it was a fumble. You look at the time of possession. The Ravens had 40 minutes time of possession to the Seahawks 19. They completely dominated the time of possession battle. The Ravens had 298 rushing yards, but you had some breakaway runs from Gus Edwards. Keon Mitchell had a breakaway run for a touchdown. So, I thought the Seahawks defense, they didn't play a terrible game. It's just their offense couldn't get anything going. that their defense was just on the field so much that they're tired, they're gassed, and it showed with the Ravens having 29 first downs in this game alone. That's unheard of. The Ravens, I think, are playing at one of the best levels in football right now. They're one of the best teams in football. Their best 3 wins have come against the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Bengals, where they beat them 27-24 early in the season. But there's something about this team that I can't completely buy into just yet. From 2018 to 2020, they were 10-6, 14-2, and 11-6, and they didn't get to the AFC Championship in either of these years. The 14-2 season was a year where they were supposed to get to the AFC Championship, and they were just a bit short. People will point to that season and say, well, the offense, they don't have the weapons that we have now. But we've seen this offense this season show us that they aren't the most reliable. Versus the Steelers, that was a winnable game, and their receivers dropped a ton of passes. I cannot take what the Ravens are doing right now over what the history has shown me with the Chiefs and with the Bengals. The Chiefs are 7-2. They're struggling, and they're cruising to victories and can still end up with a bye in the AFC. This is the best defense Mahomes has ever had, and I said earlier, I have faith that Mahomes and the offense will figure it out eventually.
They're cruising to victories right now? I don't know. Miami, they were right at the end. They lost to Denver. That Jets game could have gone either way.
Not cruising to victories. There's a little bit of a scare there.
A little bit.
But it's not nothing to panic about.
I
agree. They aren't losing. They aren't barely winning games like when the Bills barely beat the Giants and it could have gone either way at the end. Their defense is holding up at the end. And then I look at the Bengals. They're 5-3 right now. They're not 7-2 like the Ravens. But we just seen in week 3, the Ravens beat the Bengals 27-24, and the Bengals offense was not clicking. Joe Burrow was still injured. I think if these teams matched up right now, it would be a toss-up matchup, and I'd probably lean Bengals. So when I look at what the Bengals and the Chiefs have done, the Chiefs have won a Super Bowl. Their floor is an AFC Championship. The Bengals, the past 2 years, they've been to the AFC Championship, and I can't sleep on the up-and-coming Jaguars. They got a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. I know the passing yard stat for them defensively may not look all that attractive, but in terms of EPA per play, they're 4th in drawback EPA and 8th in success rate on defense, and that shows me that they have a pretty great pass defense. So when it comes to the Ravens, they're playing amazing. They've blown out the Seahawks and the Lions, but let's be honest. The Seahawks and the Lions are probably not even a top 5 team in the AFC. In the NFC, they're one of those teams that maybe could come out, but in the AFC, they don't even have a chance, and the Seahawks might not even make the playoffs in the AFC. So for me, I look at the Bengals and their 3 wins against the Bills, where I feel like they dominated them, even though the score might not show it. They dominated the 49ers, and they beat the Seahawks. It was a very close game, but they still beat them. I look at those 3 wins, specifically those 2 wins against the Niners and the Bills, and I feel like, I think that's a bit more impressive than blowing out the Lions and the Seahawks.
I'm with you.
So for me, I think the Ravens are comfortably a top 3 team in the AFC, but to crown them as the best team in the AFC right now, I'll have to wait and see more from them.
Statistically, everything's going to lean in the Baltimore Ravens' favor. And, of course, just watching them, they seem – you want to talk about cruising. In their victories, that feels like a cruising.
Yeah.
But to me, right now, from what I've seen the last 4 weeks that the Cincinnati Bengals have played football, to me, this is right now the safest, best team in football. And you're smiling, and it's deserved. Because I'll tell you what, these last 3 games, going up against Seattle, going up against the Niners, going up against the Buffalo Bills, 2 of the 3 offenses you would say are safe. Talking about the Niners, talking about the Buffalo Bills. I give a little bit of slack to the Seahawks because they've been a little bit inconsistent. Although I like the players over there. I like the personnel. They've been able to do a decent job so far this season. But when they've gone up against tougher competition, they've seemingly folded outside of Detroit. Now, with Cincinnati, their defense has played at such a high level. Going up against the Niners didn't allow them to score 20 points. Going up against Buffalo didn't allow them to score 20 points. Over these last 2 weeks, I'll say, because we can't include 3, because Seattle's defense really has been under the radar, sneaky good. They limited Joe Burrow and company to 17 points. The defense really edged out that victory over Seattle, where they had 2 red zone opportunities. The Bengals were able to nip that in the bud and turn them over on downs. But talking about the Niners, we spoke about it last week. They looked near perfect offensively. And now going up against the Bills, we finally see T. Higgins break out. Has 9 targets, 8 catches, goes for over 100 yards. Now you're telling me that T. Higgins is back when Jamar Chase has played at a high level, although did land pretty harshly on his back. Hopefully he's doing okay. We've seen Joe Mixon play at a high level. Now Joe Burrow's back in form where he's getting outside the pocket. He's making plays. He's extending plays. That is where Cincinnati's at their best. The biggest question so far in this season with Cincinnati has been Joe Burrow's health. But I've said if Joe Burrow's healthy, you give him the benefit of the doubt and you trust what they can do going forward. Lou Anarumo has been one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in football. What he's been able to do with this team, with the young players on the squad, has been overly impressive. And for me, you're telling me that they have one of the best defenses in football, and now one of the best offenses in football is now 100% healthy and clicking on all cylinders. You have to lean Cincinnati because with the Chiefs, they have an amazing defense, but that offense is seemingly lagging behind. You know it's Patrick Mahomes. They have Kelsey and Andy Reid. You anticipate that they can get back to form, but Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, you're going to tell me that Irv Smith's now going to get involved in the red zone and start getting those opportunities? Joe Mixon playing at a very efficient high level, and the defense playing the way that it is? To me personally, I understand that it's only been 4 weeks, but this is the healthiest that they've looked. They've looked dominant, and it's been against great teams. To me, the Bengals are the best team in the AFC right now.
I don't hate that the Bengals have looked great. I think 2 things. One, I think the Ravens match up well with Cincy. They've given Joe Burrow some problems these last few times they've gone up against them. And 2, I don't think this is the same Lamar Jackson we've seen this last 2-3 years. Even when they went 14-2 and he won MVP, this Lamar Jackson I think is better. I think as a passer he is significantly better.
So confident. That's
so
really
confident, especially from the pocket, just being able to throw with anticipation and touch. I feel like he wasn't as advanced, and still that 14-2 year, that was his first full year starting in the league, right? So going to the playoff game, of course, he doesn't have the best playoff success, but I think the Ravens can give Joe Burrow. I think they could give them any elite quarterback fits. And I think Lamar Jackson, I understand the history that we've seen the Ravens kind of come up short these last few years. They've had great teams. They've had some good defenses, some good offenses. I just think Lamar Jackson's playing at a different level than we've seen him in the past.
I'll be the first one to admit that Joe Burrow has struggled against this new-look Ravens defense led by Mike Macdonald. Mm-hmm. Mike Macdonald's going to be a head coach pretty soon. He's that good. The way he disguises his coverages, it tricks a lot of quarterbacks, Definitely. Not just Joe Burrow. And the Ravens have some talent. You mentioned Jadeveon Clowney, but Kyle Van Noy's playing really well.
He has been.
Odafe Awe, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's playing well. Matabuki and Michael Pearson, the interior, they're doing some damage. And, of course, Roquan Smith has really been the difference maker in that defense. Once they propped him in, they became an elite unit. But I trust Joe Burrow.
I don't blame him. He's a good guy.
He's had his trouble in the past against the Ravens defense and against these disguises. But am I going to bank on that to continue happening? I think eventually Joe Burrow is going to figure it out because eventually Joe Burrow does figure it out. And against the Bills, Joe Burrow, he's the best zone quarterback in the NFL, throwing against zone. Joe Burrow completed 21 of his 26 passes for 220 yards versus zone coverage against the Bills. Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks against zone coverage, and that's what teams typically play against the Bengals because they cannot line up man-to-man on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
There's almost no one that can.
That's a recipe for disaster. So I think Joe Burrow will figure it out. And as great as Lamar Jackson has been, he right now is the front runner for MVP of the league. Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, is still better. So I'm taking the better quarterback in Lou Anarumo. There's few guys I trust more to game plan for one game than Lou Anarumo. So I think the Bengals, this is right now they're going on a run, and this can be the hottest team in the league going into the playoffs. When they were 3-3 heading into the bye week, we looked at the Niners and the Bills like, man, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough, man. They might be lucky to win one of these games. Once they cruise by the 49ers, you said, they're going to beat the Bills. We know they're going to beat the Bills. Now they're 5-3. And their next couple of games aren't that difficult. Mm-hmm. It's the Texans, and then in 2 weeks we're gonna see
that's Thursday
that
football.
Ravens and Bengals matchup. We're gonna see the Ravens and the Bengals, and we're gonna see them go toe to toe. And you know what? My early predictions for that game, I think the Bengals keep rolling, man. I think the Bengals are that good right now.
At Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Oh, so Baltimore won in Cincy earlier this year. Okay.
They did.
The issue for that becomes kind of similar to the conversation that we had just had with the Cowboys and the Eagles, right? You would lean one way over the other, but in a division matchup, it's so tough to really know the concrete outcome of how it's going to end up. In reality, you're 100% right. The last time, of course, excluding week 2, but going into last season, the postseason, where Lamar Jackson didn't play, we saw Joe Burrow struggling. We really saw the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a fact. And if it was a fumble in the red zone that ended up being recovered for a touchdown, that ended up being the deciding factor of the game. The Ravens' defense is elite and definitely can give the Bengals issues. But where you start to feel a little bit more confident if you're a Bengals supporter is that the Bengals defense can keep up with any team in the league.
I actually, I do like the Ravens a lot, Dehls. You know, I think they've been fantastic this year. This stat caught me by surprise. The 2023 Baltimore Ravens defense is allowing a touchdown on only 8.7% of opposing drives. Since 2002, according to True Media, this is the second best mark in the league since that point. The only defense that has been better was a 2000 Baltimore Ravens. So the best defense of all time, arguably. That's the only defense that allowed a touchdown on less percentages of drives.
They've been incredible. Nothing short of amazing.
And this is the third team since 1970 to win 3 straight games by 24-plus points against teams entering with a winning record. So they've done this against teams that are playing good football, and they've just shut them down.
They've been overly dominant. And it also goes hand in hand with, ironically, they want to, get out of the scheme of being this known rush offense, but you just can't help it when you have one of the best rushing engines in the game in Lamar Jackson. They're number 1 in terms of rush yards per game. It's just going to happen with Baltimore, where we've seen Lamar Jackson progress as a passer. That can't be ignored. He is the most confident I've ever seen him in a pocket. He really trusts his arm more so than I think I've ever seen. But you can't go away with what works. And with that run game, with the way that Gus has been playing, you mentioned Keaton Mitchell. He had an extremely efficient game. It does not matter who's in that backfield. So long as Lamar Jackson's at the helm, it's going to be one of the most prolific rush offenses in the game. It just adds to the fact that Lamar Jackson has become this great passer in his own right.
And the fact that Lamar stresses the defense so much like he does, where you have to account for him in the running game, it just opens up the field for everybody else.
I was going to say, and he's really spreading the wealth. We saw Odell kind of have his little breakout moment.
That was his best game. He looked good.
For sure. He definitely looked the best he's looked so far.
At the end of the Cardinals game, they were up a touchdown. He dropped the ball. I don't know, some shit. He was throwing his helmet on the side.
But Mark Andrews has been amazing. But that was to be expected when you added an Odell. Rashad Bateman has been healthy. That's been great to see. Zay Flowers gets drafted. He's been very versatile for this Baltimore Ravens offense, but they're spreading the wealth. There's no one guy that you can just pick up. Maybe I guess Mark Andrews would be that guy, but there's no one that you can really just pick and be like, all right, we're going to stop him. It's going to limit the offense. No, Lamar Jackson is just spreading the wealth, and it's working to their benefit.
We talked about the Bengals a lot, and we're going to talk about them some more because they beat the Bills 24-18. And this score could fool some people if they didn't watch the game because it looks like it's a close game, just a 6-point game. But the Bengals controlled this one, and they basically did whatever they wanted. The Bills had a touchdown late, and the Bengals had to ice the game, and they iced it. And what I love about how they iced it is that they didn't run the ball with Joe Mixon 3 times and punt it. No, they said, Joe Burrow, we're taking shots down the field, and we're gonna have you end the game for us. And Joe Burrow did just that. I think it's amazing that we're seeing Joe Burrow fully healthy because when he's fully healthy, the way that he can evade the pocket and scramble, those mean a lot to a Bengals offense. That offensive line really isn't the best. And in this game, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, 36 minutes time of possession. They dominated the clock in this one. Do you think this was just a great elite Bengals showing, or do you think this was bad Bills and they are one of those teams that we should be very concerned about?
Buffalo, it's their MO. At this point, I don't want to sit here and kind of be like this Debbie Downer for this Buffalo Bills team, but this is kind of what they've been. And I feel like they're falling into a bit of stagnation with extending Sean McDermott. That was a move that I kind of rose my eyebrow when that was last offseason, the previous one, whichever, because I'm looking at McDermott and I'm like, sure, you've kind of, you figured out the defense. That's your specialty. That's your side of the ball. But at some point, when is this team going to get over the hump? When is Buffalo going to get over the hump, be able to get past Cincinnati, get past the Kansas City Chiefs, reach the AFC Championship game, reach a Super Bowl? Because, I mean, their best window to win is probably behind them because they paid Josh Allen. And going forward, it's only going to get tougher. And to be fair, this season is not entirely on the coaching because I have a stat here from Nate Tice, who works at PFF. With Matt Milano on the field, they had a 40.5% passing success rate allowed, which is 5th in the NFL, a negative 0.19 EPA per play allowed, which was tied for 2nd best in the NFL. Without Matt Milano, that falls to 31st and 28th, respectively. Of course, they've had some other injuries, Daquan Jones, Trey Smith, but Matt Milano has really been just such a huge loss for this team where the defense went from one of the best in the NFL to one of the worst. So it's not fair to just put this on Sean McDermott, but I've seen multiple seasons now with this Buffalo team when they've had Matt Milano at times come up short. And we just talked about the Cowboys, how they kind of feel like that team where situationally in the biggest moments going up against the better teams in the NFC, they fall up short. It kind of feels the same way for Buffalo in the AFC, where if they're going up against a Cincinnati, if they're going up against a Kansas City, if they're going up against the Baltimore Ravens, I don't trust them more than those other teams. Those other teams to me feel more complete. I trust them in those gotta have it situations. Josh Allen is still amazing. He should still be looked at as a top 3, top 5 quarterback in the league right now. But I'm looking at Buffalo and I just can't wrap my arms around them. And what they've done by extending Sean McDermott is kind of saying, we're okay being a really, really good team. If a couple things break our way, maybe we could get to an AFC Championship game. Maybe Josh Allen goes nuclear and has 500 total yards in one of these games and is able to carry us. But to expect your quarterback to game in and game out have to do that. We've talked about this for years now, how they're so Josh Allen dependent. We saw yesterday, James Cook had like 6 carries. Like, what are we doing? He's averaging damn near 5 yards per carry. I understand you went down early, but still, it still feels like it's the same issues plaguing this team year after year after year. And it feels like they're just going to keep going out with it because they're going to win enough that no one's going to look at them and say, oh, you got to move off this guy or this guy. But they're also not going to be able to just get over that hump and reach a Super Bowl.
And those James Cook's runs are same concepts. Or at least inside zone. There's no variety to the runs that they have. If Josh Allen were to get an offensive coordinator that was from the Shanahan tree who knows how to run design and stuff, we'd see this offense take another level. I just don't think Josh Allen can carry the Bills anymore. He can carry them to the playoffs, and they can be fine. Even now, they're a bit in danger of making the playoffs in totality, but I think they'll make it.
Be in 3rd place after tonight.
Yeah, 4 losses this early in the season. When was the last time we saw that with the Buffalo Bills?
It's been a while, and it's alarming because Matt Milano's not coming back. Matt Milano's one of the best off-ball linebackers in the league. He doesn't have the impact that Fred Warner has. Warner's in a tier of his own. But Milano is the next guy up. He's that good. You lose him. You lose Trey White. It's just hard to overcome. And then the offense, I think they did find something with the 11 personnel grouping, spreading out the field. They did have a good day. Offensively, Kincaid is now getting more involved. Shakir had some catches. But all in all, you have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to stretch the defense in another way that's not just Josh Allen's arm, because they were putting Dax Hill back on every single drop back, 20 yards, just expecting a big play, and they were trying to really negate explosives from the Bills' offense. And I think the Bills have serious issues. They do. I still think they will make the playoffs. I don't think this is a contender. I think it was just better Bengals because the Bengals have just played at an insane level, and their young defensive players have really broken out in a big way, and they have some continuity on defense with their defensive line that, they got after it with Josh Allen, but the Bills have some serious issues.
Again, with the conversation we just had, with the way that I feel about the Cincinnati Bengals being the best team in the AFC, I do have to say it's good Bengals, but we can't ignore exactly what you guys said. This Buffalo Bills team just seems incomplete, and in my opinion, I say this very respectfully. I really do mean this. The best that we were going to see the Buffalo Bills was against that Miami Dolphins, because when they lost Trey White and Matt Milano goes down, that's where that season ended for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion. Trey White was looking back in form. Matt Milano has been one of the best linebackers in football up until he got injured as well. Now, when you lose one of your leaders, not just one of your leaders, both of your leaders on the defensive side of the ball, it becomes very hard to come back from that. Now, we understand Josh Allen is the offense. You want to talk about heliocentric? Josh Allen becomes the definition of that because not only is he the passing engine, but he's also the rushing engine where he led the team in rushing yards last night. 10 total touches for James Cook is not going to get it done. If you're a defense and you know that Josh Allen is going to have the ball in his hands no matter what, whether it's rushing or passing, it becomes a lot more easy to scheme up against him. Okay, we're gonna drop in coverage. We're gonna have a spy on Josh Allen. Yes, he's fast. He could get by him a few times for sure. He's big enough that he can muscle up through him too. But that's the game plan because I don't have to worry about a running back. But when you had James Cook going in the beginning of the season, your offense was virtually unstoppable. But you're right. I do like what they've done with stretching out the offense, getting Kincaid more involved. He had double-digit targets. He was very effective this game. We've seen Shakir these last couple of weeks also be more involved in the offense. Gabe Davis kind of lagging behind. That's something interesting to look out for. But without a run game, I've been very insistent on this with Buffalo Bills for how many years now? I think since I've been on this show.
Never stops.
If you do not have a consistent or a reliable run game, you cannot feel confident that your team can win games when it matters the most. Even in Kansas City, who has the best passer in the National Football League, Pacheco was enormous for them down the stretch last year. You look at Tom Brady. Yes, he's one of the best passers that this game's ever seen. He's the best quarterback this game ever seen. But how huge was Leonard Fournette in their playoff run? How huge was Sony Michel for them in their playoff run? In the end, absolutely. Who could have been Super Bowl MVP if Tom Brady wasn't historic in Tom Brady? So I say that with in due part of Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback in football. He's amazing. But you can only go as far as 1, as great as your defense is, and 2, how complete and well-rounded your offense is. So to me, this is where it becomes bad Bills because unfortunately, with the injuries that they've had to their defense, it's hard for them to recover from that. And I think the best football that we've seen from the Bills, at least in this season, is behind them.
And we also have Josh Allen now back-to-back years of kind of these lingering injuries, right? Like last year was the elbow. This year now it's the shoulder. I know they mentioned on the broadcast how he went down his right shoulder first, but then when he went to hit the floor, he kind of turned around and was on his left shoulder. So, like, I know it kind of sounds archaic at times saying, like, you need to have a run game, you need to run the ball, but it's also just to protect Josh Allen because Josh Allen is kind of the one who is leading this team in rushing, right? He's done it before. He's the one that's kind of the main focal point of this run game when James Cook isn't involved. And if you're having him taking hits now, who's already banged up, that's just going to hurt your offense even more down the line.
I think the one thing with the Bills is that they just can't be complacent. Their owner can't be afraid to drop dead weight. Sean McDermott has been awesome to this point, but you have to ask the question, can he get us to the next level? Is he making it easier for my quarterback? Josh Allen, they made a huge investment in him. The less of a running game they have, the more hits he's going to take. Their owner has to make the decision of whether or not to keep McDermott to bring in an offensive coordinator who can commit to running the ball and taking less pressure off of Josh Allen so he can stay healthier longer and extend this window that they have. I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think it's possible for the Bills to miss the playoffs?
It seems unlikely. Do you have their schedule?
I do have their schedule.
Okay.
They are currently 5-4. Their next game is versus the Broncos at home, Monday Night Football.
They should win that game.
They should, but it's winnable for the Broncos.
The Broncos just beat the Chiefs.
I know.
The Chiefs.
And we're coming off a bye. We have extra time to prepare for this one.
That's a win, though, right?
So I have them as a win. I'll keep out. 6-4.
6-4.
I'll stay out of that one.
Okay.
Versus the Jets at home.
You dropped one earlier this year. You should win this game.
7-4. I agree.
Versus the Eagles on the road.
I think that's a loss.
7-5.
Versus the Chiefs on the road.
Tough one. I'm not taking them. Hell no.
To be honest with you, the Chiefs, even though they have struggled offensively against this defense of the Buffalo Bills, as it currently stands, I think they can score very easily.
Especially Chiefs have a bye. They have a few weeks from now. If the offense gets right, 7-6.
Versus the Cowboys at home.
I'll be honest, I'm going with the Cowboys.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough game. These are 3 straight tough games. Even the Jets is tough. The Jets is a tough one because of their defense.
Where would you go? I'll get you to be the tiebreaker. I'm the counter here.
If they're 7-6, this becomes a must-win for the Bills. And I trust the Bills more in a must-win game than the Cowboys.
At home, too. I'm okay. 8-6.
At the Chargers.
They should win.
That game. 9-6.
They should win this game as well. Brandon Staley might be fired.
That's a fact.
By this time.
He might get fired in 24 hours.
Or maybe after this game, the Bills light them up so bad that Staley's just gone. He gets the call right after. Versus the Patriots at home.
They should win.
10-6.
That should be a win as well. And then their last game is at the Dolphins on the road.
In Miami, to me personally,
tough.
I'm going to take Miami, but I'll defer to you guys.
I'm with you. Buffalo beat them already too.
Think they split?
I do think they split, so that'd be 10-7. You also have does Miami have first seed implications?
Second time they play,
implications.
Defense is going to be different. And with I'm not just on Miami's side, but also on Buffalo's side, where they were unbelievable the first time that they matched up against the Dolphins with the amount of pressure they were able to generate.
So we have them at 10-7. That's going to be borderline because if you want a wild card spot, you're going to have to be around that 10 win total. So it's going to be tiebreaker probably. They have to go up against.
In that wild card, we're going to talk about the Bengals. We're going to talk about potentially the Jets,
the Browns,
Pittsburgh with the way that they've playing has to be put into that conversation. Browns absolutely.
Texans?
The Texans are sneaky.
Texans are sneaky, but they feel like a little bit away.
The Texans are sneaky, and it's 10-7. The losses were against the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Dolphins.
And to be honest, I still respect the Chargers, even though that defense is bad. I still respect Herbert. He could definitely put himself into that conversation also.
Yeah, as long as they have Herbert, they have a chance to win for sure. But it's not going to be easy for the Bills to make the playoffs. This is a hard schedule.
I'll take the chances that they do, as opposed to
I think so too. I will bet on them making the playoffs as well.
Because Miami losing to the Chiefs, there was a prime position for Buffalo to really cement themselves as a playoff team, and they came up short last night.
This week in the NFL, I'll go first with this one.
Here we go.
Mr. Antonio Pierce, man, getting his first win as the Raiders head coach. They beat the Giants 30-8. You know, this is the most points the Raiders have scored in any game that Josh McDaniels was a part of. I think I have the exact stat here, but it's actually bizarre that the Raiders have fired coaches before. Their interim coaches have been 3-0. Their interim coaches usually come in and win that first game, and everybody's like, oh, this might be our long-term coach. I'm already ready to give this guy Antonio Pierce a contract.
He feels like a Raiders head coach, right? He has that kind of ego and masculinity and toughness about him, and the players love him. They seemed fed up with Josh McDaniels.
In the first half, the Raiders scored more points in Week 9 with 24 points than they did in any entire game with Josh McDaniels as the head coach this season. McDaniels, the most points he scored as a head coach was 21. I'm sold on Antonio Pierce. That speech he gave post-game, Devontae Adams.
Nah, you saw him in the background. He's like, yeah, talk to him, coach.
He didn't even have a great game. He didn't, but he's fine because it's not Josh McDaniels. They were winning, and with McDaniels, he was calling them out. He was calling out for more targets. With Antonio Pierce, he was fine. He's bought in. And, this story, I bring it up because I think it's important to what I'm talking about. The reason why Antonio Pierce got the head coaching job, the interim head coaching job, is because they had a meeting. Players and coaches, they were all in this meeting. The players were airing out their grievances, and it was a lot of stuff directed at Josh McDaniels. Antonio Pierce sticks up for McDaniels, and he brings in the analogy of the Giants versus the Patriots and how you have to believe that you can beat every single team when you go out there. You would think it's just a confidence booster for the team. The team hears Pierce say that. They're bought in. They're sold. They love it. McDaniels pulls Pierce to the side, and he says, don't you ever talk about the Patriots like that.
You're kidding.
That's what he said.
It sounds Madison.
And then ownership made the decision to fire McDaniels and promote Antonio Pierce as the interim head coach.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I saw that going around Twitter the other day.
You're kidding.
That's what happened, yeah. That's what's reported that happened.
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
Nah, McDaniels needs to find God.
He does.
Are you serious?
Glazing the Patriots that much is nuts.
What are the odds he goes back to New England? It has to be like minus 500.
He's
going back as a coordinator or an assistant.
Don't you ever talk about the Patriots like, are you kidding me? Yeah. First off, wasn't Antonio Pierce on that squad?
He was on the
Giants. He won the Super Bowl that year with them.
Yeah.
So, one, obviously, there's emotional attachment on that, and then he's also motivating his guys on the team. You're not on the Patriots anymore, bro. Let that go. maybe there's a reason why you weren't able to find success as a head coach.
Come on, man.
Yeah, give it up, man.
For real, I heard that story and I thought it was ridiculous because, this guy's sticking up for you. And then you make it about something that's completely irrelevant.
Kidding me?
Nah, it's crazy, man. But I like Antonio Pierce. It's good that he got his first win. The Raiders are not completely out of it. They're 4-5.
Yeah.
They're still very much in the hunt.
You know who they got next week, though?
The Jets.
Gotta go with the Jets.
You know the Jets going to win that. But Aiden O'Connell, man, he was a big upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, I think.
My this week in the NFL, I have, unfortunately, 2 of them. Now, I say unfortunately for the first one that I'm going to share. Daniel Jones, unfortunately out for the rest of the season, does have a torn ACL. Played 1 extra snap with the torn ACL, fell to the floor, non-contact injury. Really heartbreaking for the kid. Hasn't been able to really be healthy this season. Of course, with the torn ACL, it's going to shove him for the rest of the year. But what has already been a terrible year for Daniel Jones, it just gets even worse after this. Be very interesting to see what the New York Giants do moving forward, understanding that without Daniel and even with Daniel, this was not a team that was playing winning football. They're probably going to be in a prime position to draft a quarterback in this upcoming draft.
For the next 2-3 weeks as well.
That's also true. So it's really unfortunate. Daniel's one of my guys, one of my favorite quarterbacks in the game. Really unfortunate for him to go out like this. Now on a more positive note, Joshua Dobbs, with 0 practice snaps.
What a goat.
To go up against the Falcons, where he's in the huddle, doesn't even know some of these guys' names. And he's able to go out there, complete 20 passes on 30 attempts, throw for over 150 yards, get 2 touchdowns with a game-winning drive on top of it as well. Go for 7 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown on the ground too. Credit to the kid to come in this type of situation where you don't even know some of the plays. You have your coach on the sideline. You and I were talking about it last night on the Fantasy Reaction Show where the coach is explaining the play to him in real time. And you still go out there and you execute at that level. Credit to Joshua Dobbs, a true professional.
He had a big-time scramble. The 2 very shocking performances that I've seen happened in the last 2 years. Joshua Dobbs comes to the Vikings and leads them to a win with less than a week of being there. Last year, we saw something like that with Baker Mayfield with the Rams where he wasn't even with the Rams for 3-4 days. Mm-hmm. And he leads a comeback against the Raiders and throws a game-winning touchdown, leads them to a game-winning drive. It's some special stuff, man. Joshua Dobbs is a rocket scientist. So he's somebody that's very smart. He's very intelligent. So you can know that, he can grasp a playbook pretty fast, but it's really crazy how fast these guys can retain information.
Yeah, so I have 2. We're going to do a Would You Rather. But my first one is Kyler Murray, set to return next week. Of course, dealing with that torn ACL. He was these last couple of weeks been kind of strange. He's been practicing in full. He's listed as questionable, and then he ends up being a healthy scratch on game day. But this week we saw Arizona, of course, move off Josh Dobbs, start Clayton Tune this week. They got absolutely destroyed by Cleveland, but now they get Kyler Murray, so they'll have about 2 months to kind of see, is this going to be our franchise quarterback, or we're going to go in a different direction? Because Arizona right now is setting up to probably have a top 5 pick, but you play Kyler Murray, you're probably going to win a couple of games. So Kyler might be able to play himself into a job next year. Of course, he'll have a job wherever he goes, but into the Cardinals starting job.
I would love Kyler on the Broncos, even though I love Russell.
I bet you would.
Give me Kyler.
So I have a Would You Rather.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather Jordan Addison edition? Jordan Addison's been killing
Rising star.
Rookie sensation, Minnesota Vikings. We know Minnesota knows how to draft those wide receivers, man.
They do.
So how about another...
Outside of Laquan Treadwell.
Outside Treadwell, that's a fact. How about another rookie sensation? Puka Nacua.
Puka Nacua is having a better year statistically. I'd go Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison is a better player.
You're pulling at heartstrings. I think that in that system, it fits perfectly with what Puka Nacua can do and his skill set. But the stats, I mean, you say that in receptions and yards, sure, that Puka has that, but in touchdowns, 7 touchdowns his rookie campaign, I wish I could plead the 5th. I'm going to go, damn, why'd you do this, Joel?
I knew this was a good name.
I'm going to, damn, Joel, you really got me fucked up here.
I think I would lean Jordan.
Oh, this is terrible. I'm going to go Puka.
Okay. How about same draft class, Zay Flowers?
Zay Flowers is a stud too, man.
I got you, and now I got to get him.
God damn it. Zay Flowers, Addison. Because of what Addison has shown me in the absence of Justin Jefferson, I got to go Jordan Addison.
I'm with that same mindset. I'm going with Jordan.
Year 2 receiver, Drake London.
I'm going with Drake London.
I like Drake London more.
Sorry.
Right now, he's the victim of bad quarterback play. But if he gets good quarterback play, he's going to be one of the
Drake
top
London's
end receivers.
Baby Mike. He is Baby Mike.
No, he's a dog. Another year 2 player, George Pickens.
Jordan Addison.
I'm going with Jordan Addison. This free me bullshit, it's really losing me.
Losing you?
It's losing me bad. I like the talent that is George Pickens. He obviously has big playability, but intangibles matter.
Okay, so those were kind of the young guys I was thinking. Now I have a couple more veteran guys. Been in the league for a couple of seasons now. Jordan Addison or T. Higgins?
T. Higgins.
I'm going with T. Higgins still.
Okay, easy.
I wouldn't say easy.
I think I'm going with T. Higgins pretty comfortably. I mean, in Jamar Chase's absence last year, T. Higgins was on a 1,500-yard pace. I think he's one of the elite receivers in the game. Not tier 1 elite, but top 15 for sure.
To do what he's been doing in his rookie campaign, I really do like the talent that is T. Higgins. But 7 touchdowns, and again, like you mentioned, to be able to continue to produce without Justin Jefferson, all the attention that he draws, I think I lean Jordan.
So going forward, Jordan Addison or Chris Godwin?
Jordan Addison.
I'm going to go Jordan Addison.
Chris Godwin got some injury concerns. He got an injury history. I'll go with Addison moving forward.
I throw legend around very loosely. I understand that, but I really do like Chris Godwin.
Okay, I got 2 more.
But I'm going to go with Addison.
2 more. Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman is one of those. Michael Pittman is the most underrated receiver in the league right now. I'm going with Michael Pittman.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
And that draft class was special.
This one's hard also. Because I do like Pittman. I'll go Michael Pittman.
All right, last one, Smitty.
I'm going Devontae Smith.
Okay.
I feel like Devontae Smith is kind of like a Jordan Addison clone. Similar body, similar frame.
Sure.
But Devontae is just more refined in more areas. Better hands, better route running. I'm going with Smitty.
Yep, that's all I got.
I had something too. The Vikings are 5-4 right now. And they couldn't make the playoffs with Joshua Dobbs. Led by Joshua Dobbs.
Read me the schedule.
Okay, I got the full thing actually in front of me. The Saints.
Winnable.
The Broncos.
I don't know.
The Bears.
Winnable.
The Raiders.
Their schedule's so light. We've talked about this when they won that game and Kirk was healthy.
I guess that is winnable also.
The Lions.
I'm going to go with the Lions.
The Packers.
Winnable game.
And then last game, the Lions.
Okay. Well, the Lions probably lose one.
Lions could
but they could win both.
They could be playing for nothing possibly. Who knows?
That's also true. Not impossible by any means.
With Joshua Dobbs, anything's possible, man.
It's a fact.
With Joshua Dobbs.
He's a dog, man. You love to see it. The rushes he had where he looked just dead to rights, and he was able to spin out of the pocket and just like that one where he spun out to the right. Cam Akers laid a great block, and he ran up touch. I'm like, bro, what the fuck did I just watch? He had some really special plays yesterday.
It's week 9. Well, it's the day after week 9. Week 9's about to end because, the Jets-Chargers game, which means we are officially at the halfway point of the NFL season. And you know what that means? We are going to give our award winners for the halfway point of the NFL year. First award up, MVP. Who's the MVP of the league at this point of the year?
This one was pulling my heartstrings because I had a clear answer, and then Drew called me earlier today. We had a conversation. I'm like, shit. Right now, my MVP would be Lamar Jackson. What he's doing with Baltimore, he's just the offensive engine of that team. But Jalen Hurts, 8-1, best record in the NFL. The only thing that I think might hinder him is the interceptions. Because last year, 6 total interceptions? He's already at 8. So if voters are going to see, well, he had a worse statistical season than last year, and we didn't give him the MVP, or we can give it to him this year, he would be my runner-up, but Lamar would be my winner.
To me, all season long, it has been Tua. The numbers have backed him up. But going up against teams that have a winning record, unfortunately not being able to have a win, that goes against your MVP case. To me, the MVP is Jalen Hurts over these last 3 games. Just to highlight these last 3 games, 75% completion percentage, 805 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, a passer rating of 125.5. As a passer this season, he has been amazing. He's dropping back with the best of the best in the National Football League. They haven't really relied on him as much as a rusher. They've really asked him to push the ball down the field vertically, and he's been up to the task. You mentioned it. His team has the best record in the NFL. To me, he is the engine. He is the offense for the Philadelphia Eagles. As great as A.J. Brown is, as great as Smitty is, this offensive line, they go as far as Jalen Hurts takes them. This is my MVP.
My MVP is pretty easy. It's Lamar Jackson. And I don't got a runner-up, but I got a dark horse. I got 2 dark horses. My one dark horse is Joe Burrow. Last 4 games he's playing at the MVP level. My second dark horse is CJ Stroud.
For MVP?
CJ Stroud can definitely be in a conversation. His stats are that good. 14 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season. CJ Stroud.
So Russell Wilson's the MVP candidate.
No, hell no.
What do you mean?
Expectations matter. The Texans were not expected to do anything.
And neither was the Broncos.
Yes, they
Russell
were.
Wilson.
Y'all expected to be way
We
better.
had the worst
Especially with,
offense
like,
in the
8
league
games.
last year, bro. He has as many touchdowns as he did last year already.
CJ Stroud is playing that great. He's playing that
He's playing
great.
unreal. He's playing at probably top 10 level.
MVP.
MVP
don't
is
make
great.
me
I said
disrespect
dark.
it.
I said dark horse.
No,
I didn't say
no.
runner up. I
He's
said
no.
dark horse.
He's more of MVP than Tua is.
Yes.
You're out of your mind.
He's a better player.
You're out
than
of your
Tua is.
mind.
That's facts. He's a better player than Tua
Oh
is.
my God. We
CJ
just had the conversation last week that
CJ
Bryce
Wilson-
Young was better than CJ Stroud. The week after, Bryce Young goes to those 3 interceptions.
I never said Bryce was better than CJ. Bro.
I know that he played better.
Okay, that's
in the one game. That's
a
all I said.
game.
That's all I
Okay.
said. We just had that conversation, and now suddenly, the week after, where he did have an unbelievable game, a record-breaking performance, it was
Unreal.
out of this world.
He had 5 touchdowns.
How many games before that was he just
470
okay?
yards.
He was
Just
amazing
the
to start
Panthers
the
game.
season. Then he had a couple of games. Statistically
That's all I'm
speaking,
saying.
he was not amazing.
CJ Stroud had like maybe 2 games that weren't statistically amazing, versus the Panthers and versus the Saints. That's it. Versus the Falcons, he was fine. And then Steelers, Jaguars, Colts, Ravens, he was awesome.
What did he do against the Falcons? They lost that game, didn't they?
249 yards, 1 touchdown,
No, against the
88.9
Fal-
rating.
That's the Falcons.
That's the Falcons, yeah.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
249 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 88.9 passer rating.
As a rookie, that's amazing. That's a really good game.
That's not MVP.
That's all I'm
That's
saying.
MVP.
14 touchdowns to 1 interception on the
no,
season.
that's
Again,
elite.
Russell Wilson.
That's
Then let me
elite.
talk about Russ.
elite.
No.
But we're not going to do that.
No, we're not
But then
talking
he's
about
more of MVP than Tua. You lose
Now,
me.
CJ's better than Tua, bro. You know that.
Even if you think that's true, that
No, it
has
is
nothing
true.
to do with our
It's a fact.
conversation.
CJ actually plays well against teams that are above 500.
Crying.
He played well against the Jaguars. He did. They beat the Jaguars.
Yeah.
It's a division game.
It's a 6-2 team. They beat them.
Buffalo's
CJ
divisional
Stroud
game,
did his
buddy.
thing.
Oh my God. And what about the Patriots, who beat the Bills?
Mid.
See, you guys, and you pick and fucking choose, man.
Offensive
choose. That's the
player
name
of
of
the
the show.
year.
It's Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
It's Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
It's
no
Tyreek Hill.
explanation.
Yeah, pretty easily. Defensive player of the year.
This one gets
This one's tough.
interesting.
There's a few names.
I have decided to go with Michael Parsons.
Okay.
Has 49 pressures, does have 8 sacks. That's 2 off the top spot. And the top spot for most sacks is a 4-way tie: Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Daniil Hunter. Of those 4 names, the one that was second place to me was Myles Garrett, because he's also part of the best statistical defense in football. But for what Micah has been able to do this season and the limited amount of pass rush snaps, I'm going with Micah.
I'm going to go with TJ Watt here. I just feel like
Now he's giving respect to TJ.
no, I just the amount
I
of
respect it.
the amount of wins that he's been directly correlated to for the Steelers.
Where was this last week when we
means
had the
something to me.
We said the
conversation?
same shit last week.
with the would you rather.
No,
No,
with
when we did
the top
non-MVP,
5 non-MVP.
yeah.
You didn't even have TJ in your
Here's
conversation.
my honorable mention.
But now he's your defensive player of the year. So that
The Steelers are 5-2, and they have a
I agree.
negative point
TJ
differential.
is
yeah.
arguably the best defensive player in the game.
I agree.
My dark horse, though, is not edge rusher. It's actually an inside linebacker, and it's Roquan Smith.
Respect.
I think Roquan Smith is my dark horse for the Ravens being an elite defense like they are.
What about Fred?
It all changed with Roquan. Fred is amazing. I think Fred is a better player than Roquan. I think Roquan has really changed the Ravens defense around.
Absolutely. I also had TJ Watt as my defensive player of the year. Same thing. It just feels like he makes winning, like literally you win the game because of TJ Watt. The other one who won't win it, but the fact that he does so much with so little, Max Crosby. The fact that he's leading the league in pressures, and there's just that Raiders defense.
He's awesome.
There's nothing there. Like it's the Max Crosby show on defense. Teams know how elite he is. They know there's really no edge rusher near him on that team, and he consistently still wins at such a high level. He would be, I guess, my quote unquote dark horse. But the defense is so bad, they're not going to win enough games for him to really be in that conversation.
So interestingly enough, Max Crosby, this is what I was taking into account. In terms of pass rush snaps, he has the most with 336. And again, he is tied for most sacks in the league. But if you look at a Micah Parsons, he has almost 100 less pass rush snaps than a Max Crosby. Pressures. Has 2 less sacks and only 4 less pressures. TJ definitely is in that top 3 conversation. But again, Miles is a part of the best statistical defense in football. Is tied for most sacks in football. Doesn't have the same amount of pressures, but you know the difference and the impact that he has on that Cleveland defense.
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud clearing. Dark horse for me. I was gonna go Puka Nacua, but I'm gonna go Jordan Addison as a dark horse.
Yeah. The dark horse has to be Puka Nacua for in my opinion. When Matthew Stafford and him have been on the field together, magic happens. Of course, Brett Rypien comes in. That whole entire offense looked like trash. But again, he's been historic as a rookie wide receiver. Yes. I'm going to go Puka as the dark horse, but CJ, he's got it locked and loaded.
Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Jalen Carter, Devon Witherspoon definitely needs acknowledgement. He has been unbelievable at cornerback for the Seahawks. Honestly, this whole cornerback class has been special. We spoke about it on the Fantasy Reaction Show. Devon Witherspoon had been great. Christian Gonzalez, prior to injury, had been amazing. The only one that hadn't been great was Emmanuel Forbes, but Deonte Banks had been great. Joey Porter's been phenomenal. This is going to be one of those classes when we talk about the cornerback that this is one of the best drafts that we've seen for the cornerback position. But Jalen Carter is just he's become one of the best defensive players in football. It has to go hand in hand with winning Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I'm going with Jalen Carter as well. My dark horse was Devon Witherspoon, but since you mentioned him, I want to mention Will Anderson because the sack numbers might not be entirely there, but the pressure numbers are. Will Anderson has been awesome for the Texans, and it is the best pass rusher on their team. Coach of the Year.
This one was by far the most difficult for me. I'm going to say Nick Sirianni. Now, I don't think that he is the best coach. I just believe that last year didn't win it because of situation. Brian Daboll getting the Giants to the playoffs was out of this world, deserved to win Coach of the Year. But this year, I think the Eagles are going to finish with the best record in football. You lose your offensive coordinator. You lose your defensive coordinator. On defense, you're not the same defense because of the secondary and the personnel. But on offense, you've seemingly, in my opinion, gotten better. I know the turnovers are there, but in terms of trusting Jalen Hurts and seeing him progress as a passer, the reason why they're winning these games is because of this offense. I got to give credit to Nick. I think that he is the Coach of the Year at this point.
I have Dan Campbell as my Coach of the Year.
That's a great name.
Dark horse, if the Jets make the playoffs, it should be Robert Saleh.
Yes.
If the Jets make the playoffs, there's no Aaron Rodgers in a very Brian Daboll-esque faction from last year where they don't have the best record, right? They don't have, they don't have like these Super Bowl aspirations or anything if Rodgers isn't there. But the fact that your star quarterback who you traded for all this hype goes down week 1, you're still able to keep the locker room together. You win with Zach Wilson. The defense plays at such a high level, and you make the playoffs for the first time in fucking forever. Robert Saleh would deserve Coach of the Year.
My Coach of the Year is also Dan Campbell. He deserves an award for the way he's turned around the Lions, and a playoff berth is a cherry on top, and he deserves that. My dark horse, Robert Saleh, is a great name. I'm going to go with Kevin O'Connell as my dark horse.
Interesting.
A team that started off slow in the Vikings, they've crawled out of their hole that they were in, the rut that they were in. Kirk Cousins gets hurt. They win with Joshua Dobbs. If this team can find a way to be in that playoff mix until the end of the season, I think he deserves recognition for that award.
Now, I know we don't love Nick Sirianni, but there is a case for him to win Coach of the Year.
No, there is. The case against him, though, is that the Eagles roster is so loaded that I think you can put a lot of coaches in that situation and they can get similar results. But that's nothing to take away from Sirianni.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
But I just think more coaches have done more with less.
Just losing Steichen, who now has gone to the Colts, has done a great job with them with limited personnel, losing your rookie quarterback. And then you see what Steichen's doing, you see what Gannon's doing over there in Arizona. Not record-wise for neither of these teams, but the defense.
Got some heart.
The team plays with that's the perfect word. They play with a lot of heart every single weekend. To lose both of them and to still be the best team in football record-wise, to me, you got to get acknowledgement. And I think last year he didn't get it, even though they had the best record in football. This year, if he repeats that same result, he should get an award.
Comeback Player of the Year.
I saw DeMar Hamlin's odds have dropped significantly. He was like minus 500 before the season. He's like minus 100 now.
Why?
I think they're realizing that DeMar Hamlin, like he's a backup. He doesn't play. He's been active for one game this season.
Do you have DeMar Hamlin as your?
No, I don't. I have Breece Hall.
That's a good name. I have Russell Wilson. Now, honorable mention.
Someone different.
Honorable mention. I do have Tua since prior to the season. He was in this conversation. Obviously, he's in MVP conversations automatically. He has to be in the comeback player of the year conversation. But Russell Wilson, at this point, has the same amount of touchdowns as he did the entirety of last season. He's been one of the bright spots, one of the lone bright spots. Hey, but maybe we could be turning things around. Who knows? But one of the lone bright spots on this Broncos team. I get it on a week-to-week basis. The yard total isn't there, but again, he's been very efficient, has gone into the end zone. His sack totals probably aren't the most cleanest, but he's been limiting turnovers. He's been great, and for how terrible and how much dirt was thrown on his name after last season, he's answered a lot of critics this year. This is my comeback player of the year.
My honorable mention is Baker Mayfield.
I like that.
Respect that.
Baker's been playing well. I had Breece originally, but then I was like, I'm going to pick Salah, so I don't want to be too Jets biased. But mine would be Tua. I think it's different conversation when you're having MVP talks and like, yeah, I want to see you go and beat the best of the best and win playoff games. But just for comeback player of the year, where we're not so specific on like what we're looking for. Tua was, end of last season. It's like he was having retirement thoughts, right? The concussions were obviously a big issue. He worked on in the offseason. He worked on it, the jiu-jitsu, fall into the ground, and he's put up insane statistical numbers, been able to stay healthy. So he would be my comeback player of the year.
Last two questions. These are not awards that the NFL hands out, but these are pick-a-side awards.
Here we go.
Biggest surprise and biggest disappointments of the season so far. What are your two?
I'll think about my biggest surprise, but my biggest disappointment by far has been the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. For them to be one of the worst teams in football after last year being one of the most scrappy and most overachieving teams that there was, I felt as if they'd be significantly better than what they've shown us so far this season. The offense has been pedestrian. The defense has been really good, but then they had a step back last. I keep saying last because, of course, we're recording on a Monday. We usually record on a Tuesday. But yesterday, they had a huge regression going up against Las Vegas. The Raiders were essentially able to do whatever they wanted offensively. But for this to be the result of the New York Giants, that's definitely my biggest disappointment.
My biggest disappointment, I had the Giants. I also have the Chargers. I thought the Chargers were going to be a team that was going to be able to not maybe compete for the division, but be pretty solidified in the wild card race. I thought that getting healthy, you have Justin Herbert back. I thought they'd be able to kind of right their wrongs from last season, right in that playoff game. They've been a disappointment. I have the Giants, and my other disappointment is Arthur Smith's not a good coach. I'm over it at this point. Arthur Smith, I thought at the end of last year, I'm like, he's the offensive mind. Like, he's young. I feel like he has some good play design. But the way he's been treating Bijan Robinson is just so, like, comically bad. And I hate the way, and I'm just a guy with a podcast, but I hate the way how he goes up to the media and kind of makes it seem like he's a know-it-all. Like, he kind of makes it seem like, oh, like, we Algier's got to get these touches and this and that. Like, he just feels like he has to be the smartest guy in the room sometimes. I'm like, yo, you drafted Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall. There's no reason on the 5-yard line you should do a pass to Jonnu, a jet sweep to Jonnu, and a rush to Tyler Algier. Get Bijan Robinson the ball. He's been a disappointment. But my biggest surprise has to be that guy, CJ Stroud. I mean, the best rookie quarterback season probably ever we're witnessing right now. 14-1 touchdown interception ratio. That shit doesn't exist.
That's stupid.
That is absolutely insane what he's doing. The fact that he got the ball with 40 seconds left yesterday, he went down the field, ... like he's done it a million times in his life. That was something that I would expect from a Patrick Mahomes, from a Joe Burrow. And that's the vibe he gives me is Joe Burrow. Just pinpoint accuracy. He doesn't have this overwhelming kind of physical attributes, but pinpoint accuracy. Mentally, he just feels sharper than everyone. He has beautiful touch on the ball. He can layer passes. He's just been absolutely sensational this year.
My biggest disappointment this year has to be the Packers starting off this slow, 3-5. They've had a chance at almost every game that they've played in this year. But, who am I kidding, man? My biggest disappointment this year was Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. On the first couple of plays for the Jets.
That was more heartbreak than disappointment.
My goodness, it was heartbreaking. It was disappointing. That's my biggest disappointment. The fact that he is trying to come back. I just seen him throw a 50-yard pass. That would be special if he comes back. Yeah. Zach Wilson's playing competent quarterback at a competent quarterback level. if we can make the playoffs and give Rodgers the chance, we got a chance this year.
Hey,
we got a real chance.
If there was ever an NFL script, this is the way to write it.
My biggest surprise has to be the Steelers being 5-3. I don't know how they managed to win games. They just do. They managed to win these tight games that they aren't supposed to win. Kenny Pickett, quarters 1 to 3, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Quarter 4, he turns into a god. He's otherworldly. Now we could get, he's like the Tim Tebow of this generation right now with how great he is in the fourth quarter. So that's my biggest surprise. The Steelers just keep finding ways to win, and I keep thinking that it's going to regress to the mean. They aren't going to chunk out these wins and churn out these wins. Eventually, it got to stop, but it just never stops.
In your disappointment also comes my surprise, where I'm surprised that the Jets have a winning record after Aaron Rodgers does get hurt on the first drive of the NFL season for the New York Football Jets. So for you guys to remain to be one of the better teams in the AFC with Zach Wilson at the helm, and Zach Wilson's not doing that much different than what he did last season, unfortunately for you guys, but what's been carrying you guys has been this elite defense, and that's not surprising. But what's been surprising is you were expecting Aaron Rodgers to come in. He was supposed to be the dominant franchise quarterback that you guys were looking for. That didn't come into fruition, but you've still been able to play winning football, and there's a lot to credit. Robert Saleh, of course, should be at the forefront, the talent of that defense, and Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. But you got to credit Zach Wilson a little bit where he's going in, he's doing a job, he's not turning the ball over, and that's what the huge part is.
Yeah, really past or post Chiefs game, Chiefs game and on. That's really been Zach Wilson where it's like, oh, he's completing 65-66% of his passes. He hasn't had an interception in 3 games, I want to say. So, yeah, last season, Zach Wilson, there is such a huge difference between competent backup play and out of the league quarterback play, and that's what we're seeing this year. We're seeing some competent backup play
for sure.
Zach.
And what's been great is he knows I have Breece Hall. Let me not overthink it. I'm just going to check down to Breece, and that's really helped him so far.
Zach Wilson this year has gotten the cosign from All-Pro defensive player Chris Jones.
Keep going.
He's gotten a cosign from Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Patrick Mahomes actually told him in his ear, he said, you got the effing talent, just go out there and ball out. And since he said that, Zach Wilson, most fourth quarter comebacks in the NFL with 3. 7 players are tied at number 2. 12 players tied at 1. Zach Wilson, he's all alone in the tier by himself.
Wish we could just win a game like that.
Then I look at this stat right here, and this just assures me that he's going to be one of them ones. Zach Wilson is the first quarterback since 2000 to win a game with multiple 25-plus yard completions within the final 30 seconds of the fourth quarter. It's a very specific stat, but it's a telling stat of how clutch Zach Wilson is.
Moments.
When the moment is the brightest, Zach Wilson comes out and he performs. The fact that the Jets are 4-3, we're going to beat the Chargers 5-3. This video won't be out until the game is over. We will be 5-3, and Zach Wilson will play well. You want to know why? Because Zach Wilson performs in prime time. He's a prime time quarterback. He performs when the lights are the brightest. And I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers, and he's speeding up his comeback process. Aaron Rodgers, with how Zach Wilson is playing, that seat might not be so safe with the way Zachary is playing.
So safe. Rodgers, welcome back, my brother. Please come back.
Aaron. How many quarterbacks are you taking over CJ Stroud? We mentioned CJ Stroud. We all had him as Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's dark horse MVP. I think he's been that exceptional.
It's just an insane statement to make.
Dark horse.
There's no chance he wins. He won't get a vote.
If the Texans make the playoffs, he'll get a vote. That's facts. Is that not facts? He's having one of the best rookie quarterbacks.
If the Texans make the playoffs, DeMeco Ryans, Coach of the Year, locked.
He should be.
That's a good dark horse.
He should be.
If they make the playoffs, I'll give it to you. He'll get a vote.
Cool with that.
He'll get a couple votes.
Oh, now it's a couple.
Maybe 1, 2, 3.
Will he get more than Tyreek Hill?
No.
Okay.
Will he get more than AJ Brown?
Yes.
Will he get more than CMC?
Yes.
I don't know. I just don't know.
CJ's been that good. He had a historic day. The Texans beat the Bucs 39-37. CJ 470 yards, 5 touchdowns. His performance overshadowed a great Baker Mayfield performance because Baker Mayfield had a game-winning drive until CJ said he didn't. Until CJ was throwing dimes to Tank Dell, threw a dime of a touchdown pass, his 5th of the day to Tank Dell. The accuracy, the precision, the poise in the pocket by CJ Stroud, it was special. And, when CJ Stroud and the Texans got off to this hot start, I had hope that they would make the playoffs. I still think they have a chance to make it. They've had some bad losses to the Panthers. That was a bad loss. They could have been in a much better position right now. They lost to the Falcons. Those were 2 winnable games that could have put them right now at 6-3 right now. They would have had a great record. But I look at CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is the youngest player since at least 1950 with 450 plus passing yards and 5 plus passing touchdowns in the same game. The quarterback who previously held that record was Patrick Mahomes. CJ Stroud is the 6th player in NFL history to record 450 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in a game. The other 5, Jared Goff in 2018, that year the Rams made the Super Bowl. 2014, Ben Roethlisberger. 2013, Peyton Manning. The Broncos made the Super Bowl that year. 2004, Donovan McNabb. McNabb played in a Super Bowl that year. And then 1962, Y.A. Tittle. CJ Stroud is in some historic company. And the fact that he's playing quarterback at this high of a level as a rookie, I don't think anybody could have expected it. You could have said, I think CJ will be a great quarterback in the NFL. But for him to be this great day one is unlike something I've ever seen. I've seen great quarterback seasons before. Dak Prescott in 2016. Rookie Cam Newton. Rookie Justin Herbert. Rookie Baker Mayfield was damn good as well. Rookie RG3. CJ Stroud might be the best one out of all of them.
CJ's been pretty damn great. And we spoke about it on the Fantasy Reaction. We essentially modeled our entire video off of how great he was. Throwing for over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, game-winning drive with less than a minute left. He was nothing short of special. And to do it against a Buccaneers team that was putting up points, it did not matter. He answered every punch that they threw at him. You had Noah Brown, you had Tank Dell, and you had Nico Collins. Oh, let's not forget Dalton Schultz. Put up amazing weeks. All of them, if we're going to talk about fantasy football, we had 3 of them be top 10 finishes. They were fantastic, and it all starts with CJ Stroud and how amazing that he was. Now, the question was, how many quarterbacks are we going to take over a CJ Stroud? I'll list them. I'll go with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. I don't care what you say. He needs to continue to do it. I'm going with Tua Tagovailoa.
I didn't know that.
Trevor Lawrence.
Had to know that was
Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and as of right now, Dak Prescott.
As of right now, I think you're wrong. As of right now, I think
I would cut like 4 of those names on that list.
there are only 7 quarterbacks I'll take over CJ Stroud.
Who are you cutting? Are you cutting Kyler?
Yes.
Yes.
How?
Injuries. Injury concern. Yes.
Ugh, I guess.
And I think CJ Stroud at his best is better than Kyler at his
No,
best.
we can't forget what Kyler was.
No, I can't forget what Kyler was. Kyler is amazing. Kyler is amazing.
I'm going to start whining. I know the fans are already going to say
It's
that.
just 14-1 touchdown interception ratio with a
As a
first-time
rookie,
play caller with these weapons.
As a rookie.
He's been incredible.
With really no
You could
run
get Tua
game.
out of here. You get Tua out of here. Respectfully,
I'm
get
cutting
Tua out of
Tua
here.
respectfully.
And
you
Dak
you
Prescott,
both have never been Tua guys, so it does not shock me at all.
you're wearing a Dolphins sweater.
Shout out to Pops. That being said, he has been at the top of the league in statistics. He's in the MVP conversation. Why would I not take him over CJ?
There are only 7 quarterbacks I'll take over CJ.
It's like I'm not taking him over. Like I'm taking him over Goff. Like let's not
Of
fucking
course.
joke.
Mahomes,
Yes.
Burrow, Lamar,
Yes.
Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts. That's it. That's the only quarterbacks I'm taking over CJ Stroud.
Respect Kyler, please.
I respect Kyler.
I'll be honest, I don't have Kyler on my list.
I think CJ Stroud will be better than him.
I think he will be too.
Look at how great Kyler was. His
If
rookie
you're
year.
if you're the
His
Cardinals,
rookie year,
He was great.
his rookie year, we want to talk about great rookie seasons.
but he's not a rookie. no more.
Kyler's in that conversation. Yes, he has. He has. But up until this game, which obviously historic, we weren't talking about him being in this group.
So question.
He was historic.
So
I'll give him that praise.
I got a question. If you're the Cardinals, would you rather move forward with Kyler or CJ Stroud?
Kyler Murray still.
I think the Cardinals would rather move
think so,
forward with
too.
CJ Stroud.
I think so.
If they
No.
had the
Don't worry
opportunity,
about
they
the
would
ACL.
move forward with him.
You're telling me, well, or you're also taking the money involved as well, correct?
Mostly the injury concern. That's what concerns me. The injury history. That's what concerns me.
And
I just know
listen,
when he's on the
Stroud
field,
is
he's
bigger.
one of the best in the game.
Kyler obviously still going to be a little bit undersized.
But Kyler's one of the most mobile.
He is, but Stroud's game is going to age better than Kyler's game will age. Kyler could still win
Kyler's
from
still
the
a
pocket.
great pocket passer.
Yeah, but Stroud, by the time, what's Kyler in year 5,
He's
6?
a great pocket passer. In his
Stroud's
own
going
right,
to be better.
I'm with you.
There's not a doubt in my mind.
Better at what you said?
As a pocket passer than Kyler. By the time he's Kyler's age, yes.
I think Stroud is already a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
He's having damn near a top 10 type season.
He's better than Tua right now. Right now, he's better than Tua.
He's better than Tua right now. Yes, he is.
Tua's playing better right now.
He got a better arm. He's just as accurate.
Just as accurate.
Yes.
Just as accurate.
Just as accurate.
Stroud does make some really high level throws,
So
but
does
Tua
Tua.
is one of the most accurate in the league, so I'm not going to go that far.
One of the best in anticipation.
It's just that Stroud's doing this as a rookie with weapons
right.
that we had
You're right.
no faith in.
Nobody expected
with
this.
play calling, we had very little faith in. With the
I like
run
the
game
situation
that's
prior to the
non-existent.
season starting is all I'm going to say.
CJ Stroud is putting up Tua-like numbers without Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle or a Mike McDaniel.
This isn't Tua-like.
14 touchdowns to 1 interception is very Tua-like.
Tua leads the league in yards. He's number 2 in touchdowns.
He's number 2 at what? 18 or 19 touchdowns, right?
I believe he has 20 if I'm not mistaken. Let me look.
There's not a gap in touchdown passes, and CJ Stroud is playing with a far lesser supporting cast.
Because I think the top 6
Tua has 19. Excuse me.
I think the top 6
number 1.
are pretty easy. Mahomes,
Yes.
Lamar, Herbert, Allen, Hurts, Burrow. Trevor Lawrence to me is even a conversation. Like if someone says I'm taking Stroud over Trevor Lawrence, I'm not looking at you sideways.
Since
I'm
when
really
are we? Trevor Lawrence also?
I said I'm still taking Trevor over him. He's still on my
You
list.
too?
He's taking Trevor.
It's a conversation. I'm taking Trevor. Right now, CJ Stroud is a top 10 quarterback to me. My top 10 this is all in order. Number 1 is Mahomes. Number 2 is Burrow. Number 3 is Lamar. Number 4 is Josh Allen. Number 5 Justin Herbert. Number 6 is Trevor Lawrence. Number 7 is Jalen Hurts. Number 8 is CJ Stroud. And 9 and 10 is Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. That's my top 10.
Here's the thing.
I would have Kyler 9.
I don't want to sound like I'm being rude to CJ. I believe he can be a top 10 quarterback in this league. If you already want to claim him that, be early to the punch. I respect that. I can respect you too.
He's been that good, though.
He's been great. He's been unbelievably phenomenal. I'm not here to take that away from the kid. But from what I've seen from Tua, what I've seen from Kyler, a Dak Prescott as well, as of right now, if you want to go longevity-wise, if you're going to say from the future, if we're doing a draft and we're repicking all the quarterbacks, okay, I'm more open-minded.
I think that's kind of what it's how many quarterbacks, because like
that was the original question. How many quarterbacks?
I don't think it's
take?
like just this season. Okay, yes, I'm having 2 over CJ Stroud without a doubt, but I think it's going forward. Like, who would you have? Because you're listening to all these guys. Some of these names on here for you, Tua, Jalen Hurts. You got to remember they needed to get some of the best wide receivers in football, some of the best play callers in football for them to have this breakout season. And Stroud's doing it with a bunch of guys. He's just a bunch of guys.
Tank Dell, Nico Collins.
Schultz
they're great.
Before the season, we had the Texans probably as a bottom 5 receiving unit in the league.
We did.
For sure.
Let's not
There's
like
no doubt about
that.
But
They look great now.
Tank Dell's a rookie. No one here's still talking about Noah Brown, even though he had himself a great game. Nico Collins, you could really attribute that to how great CJ has been in his own right too. But Tank Dell, you tweeted, you think he's a superstar. I know you're probably using hyperbole, but you believe in the talent that is a Tank Dell.
He's awesome.
He's a great player.
He's a great route runner. He's speedster.
Agreed.
He blocks well.
No doubt about it. He has a lot of talent. You weren't going to know about that prior to the season until seeing it because he wasn't this highly touted prospect.
But I think the point still stands, though, in that CJ Stroud is doing more with less. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is most impressive about the season he's having. 2016 Dak Prescott, one of the most efficient quarterback seasons ever. You had Ezekiel Elliott. You had an elite offensive line. You had Des Bryant. He was aging, but you had him. You had Jason Witten. CJ Stroud don't got that. CJ Stroud doesn't have a running game that he can rely on consistently. Nope. They're relying on him to be the cog in the offense to lead them to victory, and that's what I think is more impressive. If we were doing a redraft, just every team in the NFL, blank slate, you're just picking your quarterback, I don't think there are 7 quarterbacks that are ahead of CJ Stroud. I actually, there are 7.
He's the 8th.
But it's debatable. Like, CJ over Lawrence is a conversation. CJ, even Herbert could maybe be a conversation.
Trevor, the team went back-to-back number 1 overall picks. The year after, they're in the playoffs. They won a playoff game.
With the Cardinals?
I'm talking Trevor Lawrence.
The Jaguars. I know. Trevor Lawrence, I would take him over CJ Stroud, but
to turn around the Jaguars?
I think when it comes to Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud is over him in terms of
Here's
how
the
many
thing.
quarterbacks we take.
Dak Prescott's definitely the name
Kyler
that I'm
Murray
most
and
comfortable
Tua as well.
having conversations about because Dak Prescott, at this point, CJ, to do what he's doing in his rookie season, I'm cool with that. But for Tua, what he's done this season, I'm sorry. I got to stay 10 toes on that one. Kyler Murray, for what he's shown me when he's on the football field, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He's one of the most versatile quarterbacks in the game. He's one of the most accurate, has one of the best deep balls in the game, had a season where he was number 1 in completion percentage. On top of it, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the game. In my opinion, top 3. You have Lamar Jackson, number 1. Justin Fields needs that acknowledgement. You, of course, as great as Jalen Hurts is, 800 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns in one season. I know Jalen Hurts has seasons where he's dominated on the ground as well. But as a passer and as a rusher, he's one of the best in the game.
But with Kyler Murray, the deficiency that he has, a major deficiency, is that he doesn't throw to the middle of the field. And he's not as quick of a passer and decision maker as other quarterbacks. In the playoff game versus the Rams, there were open guys. It wasn't just all locked up. Kyler Murray failed to pull the trigger on a lot of those passes.
I'd have to go back and watch that film. But I know he was playing without a DeAndre Hopkins.
He was, but Christian Kirk was still there. Christian Kirk was awesome.
That's also tough when the Rams defense was really, really good.
CJ Stroud, he's a machine throwing to the middle of the field. He's one of the best quarterbacks already throwing to the middle of the field.
CJ's amazing.
On top of that, and this is where you go above and beyond the scheme, Tua is playing under Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, Bobby Slowick, they come from the Shanahan tree. Their offenses are predicated on throwing to the middle of the field. But CJ Stroud has shown that he can throw outside the numbers consistently and at one of the top levels in the league. Like, they're giving him the full playbook as a rookie, and he's making some high level throws where he's going above and beyond the system. I think that this might be a stretch to say, but I think that all 32 GMs in football would take CJ in a redraft over Tua and Kyler Murray.
I'm not against that.
They're both my guys, so I'm going to stand 10 toes with them.
I like Kyler too.
But listen, this isn't to take away anything from CJ.
No, I know.
really think he's an amazing talent. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league one day. But let's pump the brakes on that. Where
He already is, low key.
He's amazing.
He's top 10, bro.
He's
like
really good.
I think he's
Anthony
top 10.
Richardson wasn't right there with him until he got injured.
Yeah, but that's like a 3-game sample size, though.
It's small, and he didn't have a game like we just saw.
No, but no one has in NFL history.
That's why it's like holy
It's
shit.
one of the very few ones, yeah.
It's like, what did you?
Like,
just
I already
do?
thought CJ was amazing, but like this game was just like, I didn't know I was gonna see this early. This was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a quarterback. It was that great.
My Twitter follower is not off to a great start for Tua. He's got 0% of the votes.
I bet, because people like to gargle Tua.
Tua, man.
And it's also coming off the day where he blew it.
True.
And CJ, right? Yeah. What about CJ and Kyler? Did you put Kyler in the conversation?
Yes, I have Stroud, Tua, Kyler, Trevor Lawrence. It's been up for 45 seconds, so it only has like 20 votes. But it's 50% Stroud, 45 Lawrence, 5% Kyler. Let me refresh.
Kyler Murray's getting some votes, for sure.
No, Trevor Lawrence needs to be number 1 with all due respect.
Oh, never mind.
It's the best
agree with
quarterback
you.
prospect we've
Trevor,
seen.
now 48% Trevor.
Right now,
Stroud.
Trevor is over Stroud. And I will not dispute that point because Lawrence is special. But Stroud, he's kind of knocking on that door. He needs to have 2 full seasons of this and maybe make the playoffs and win a playoff game. But he's knocking on that door. He is. Because Trevor Lawrence's numbers are not reflective of how great he is.
And one thing you also have to use to prop up CJ on top of just what he's been doing outside of it is you went into Houston, a team that's been rebuilding for some time with everything that has happened with Deshaun Watson and post Deshaun Watson. For him to come in there and really change the atmosphere over there.
Culture, yeah.
Nothing but praise for CJ Stroud and what he's doing over there.
Power rankings after week 9 of the NFL season. Now, the Jets and Chargers game is not finished because it hasn't started yet at this time of the recording. But if the Jets win that game, I might have them number 10.
Number 10, me too.
I might have the number 10, but you know what?
You have the Seahawks?
You know, the Seahawks, I think I'm going to drop them out. It's between number 10, it's the Jets, Bills, Seahawks, Browns, Steelers. But you know what? I believe in the Jets so much in winning this game.
Here we go.
That I'm going to have
He really does have
10.
all of them slash.
I just don't know who to pick. Power rankings after week 9 of the NFL season. Number 10, the New York Football Jets. I got them at 10.
Respect.
This is before the Chargers game, but I'm expecting we're going to beat the Chargers.
We're actually going to finish the show before the game.
I told you we were going to do it.
Well done.
We had a no bullshit show. We came in here, we did our topics, and we're about to get out.
That's a fact.
That's what happens when a Jets game's on.
Number 9, I got the Lions. Number 8, I have the Dallas Cowboys.
Right now, you're frying. Keep going.
Number 7, I have the Dolphins.
I knew that would happen.
After a loss to the Chiefs, you got to drop them down.
That's fine.
Number 6, I have the 49ers. They're on a 3-game skid.
You love the
coming
Jaguars,
off the
man.
bye week. They have to do something a little bit more for me to rank them higher. Number 5, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. Number 4, Bengals at 5-3. I don't care about their record. They're a top 4 team in the NFL right now. The Chiefs, they're number 3 to me. And number 2 and 1, the Eagles. And number 1, the Ravens.
Love that. Number 10, I do have the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson did have himself a good game against the Arizona Cardinals. And you just pair that with the fact that defense is one of the best in the game. Got to give him credit. Number 9, Detroit Lions. At number 8, I do have the Dallas Cowboys with a win over the Eagles. This could be a completely different list, but I liked what I saw from them. Defense did make some timely stops. Number 7, I do have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 6, I'm standing 10 toes with my boys, Miami Dolphins. Number 5, I do have the San Francisco 49ers. Number 4, Kansas City Chiefs. I dropped them down a spot because this offense is one that worries me, as opposed to number 3, Cincinnati Bengals. If Joe Burrow's healthy, this is one of the most trustworthy offenses in the game. You pair that with one of the better defenses. Number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. And number 1, you have to respect what they've been doing, the Baltimore Ravens.
Absolutely. At 10, I have the Dallas Cowboys. 9, Miami Dolphins. But I did think about putting the Dolphins at 10. I don't know.
Dude, you are a Jets homer, man.
Beat a good team.
I'm done with you.
I'm sorry.
Pick a side. I thought they were winning the division.
Who?
The Dolphins.
They might just at a default.
And the 9
because the
and
Bills
8, you have the Bills?
Yeah, they won by 20.
I'm sorry for spoiling that for you. They're not the same team.
They've beaten a good team this year. Dolphins are a decent team.
What was the team that they beat?
Dolphins.
Okay. What week was that?
Was it 3, 4?
What players were on the field when they did that?
Matt Milano and company.
Okay. And they're both unfortunately out for the season, correct?
Hate to see it.
Okay. Why are they still on this list?
They beat you by like 28 points.
But that was when they were clicking on all cylinders.
Were
they were a top
the Dolphins
2 team
scoring 50 and winning 50-48?
Week 18? I don't think they're going to score fucking 50, but I guarantee that the Buffalo
48.
Bills are not going to score no 40.
I love Matt Milano and Trey White, but they don't account for 4 touchdowns.
No.
Josh Allen was on one that game.
No, they were amazing. But the defense is different.
It is.
Miami's defense is different now.
Listen, until Miami beats a good team, they're not going to be in my top 7.
But you got the Bills over them. This is where you lose me.
The Bills aren't great. That shows more about Miami than
hindsight.
anything.
Let's live in the now. The defense is not the same. This offense, Josh Allen, God bless him. He's unbelievable. Stephon Diggs. We're seeing Kincaid go. But still, I'm not impressed.
Need Miami to beat a good team. I've seen the Jets beat the Eagles. I've seen the Jets go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. If you're Miami, you have this caliber of a roster. You have to beat a good team. But anyway,
beat the Chargers,
moving on.
beat the Patriots, who beat the Bills.
No one cares about that.
Just saying.
You didn't beat the Bills.
Just saying.
What are you talking? You didn't beat the Bills.
No, I didn't say that. I said the Patriots who beat the Bills.
Oh, the Patriots who beat the Bills. My apologies. Moving on, though. At 8, I have the Buffalo Bills. 7, Detroit Lions. 6, the Jags. 5, the Niners. 4, the Bengals. 3, I have the Chiefs. I think the offense gets figured out. I'm not too worried. If the defense is going to be so great, as long as the offense is fine, we know how great Mahomes is. At 2, the Eagles. And at 1, Baltimore Ravens.
We do know how great Mahomes is.
I liked your list. This guy's not so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I was really thinking about having the Dolphins at 10.
Fucking Bills. Bills. You didn't have the Bills in yours, did you not?
No, I didn't have the Bills on.
And why is that?
Because they've been losing.
Live in the now, buddy.
Sucks.
There's a reason you got the Bengals top 4.
They're amazing.
This man loves Josh Allen. That's why.
I wouldn't even say that.
He doesn't even like the Bills.
It's more so just I feel like I have to have the Bills over the Dolphins. Like what the Dolphins have shown me, they can beat the Panthers. Sick. They can beat the Panthers and Giants and Broncos. Let's go Dolphins.
Bills these last 3 weeks almost blew it to the Giants, almost choked it against the Buccaneers, lost to the Bengals, and I believe they have lost to the New England Patriots.
They were up 2 touchdowns
in the last
against the Bucs.
4 weeks. That's what they've shown you.
The Bucs, I think they won handedly. They had a late touchdown. I'm not gonna go that
The Buccaneers
far.
almost clutched it.
But they didn't.
They had a chance.
The
Bills had control of that game.
But against the Giants, who you guys constantly shit on, and deservedly so, they almost blew it.
That was inexcusable.
In Buffalo?
Inexcusable.
Against the Bengals? We just spoke about it. They look like trash.
Sometimes you got to win ugly.
That is true. Sometimes you do got to win ugly.
But when Tua wins ugly against the Bills last season, week 3, we don't give him credit for it, right?
It's just because they faced again and he wasn't that good.
What do you mean? arguably
And
better.
I also have a track record of the Bills like being really good against
dominating
good
the
opponents, bad opponents, going to the playoffs. The Dolphins, I don't have that track record.
Yeah, the Bills have really done that this year.
They have a track record.
Fucking hell, man.
That's going to do it for episode 325 of the Pick a Side podcast. You guys can follow us at Twitter at Pick a Side Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast. Make sure you guys join our Patreon. NFL Pick'em is going to be dropping on Wednesday, and we got a special surprise for people to join the Patreon. We'll announce that next show when Riv is here. But thank you guys for watching and or listening, and we'll see you guys next time.